Good morning. The Education Secretary claims middle classes will support the VAT introduction on private schools.
Bridget Phillipson has said pushy parents will demand more from the state schooling system after being priced out by rising fees.
But many are heavily criticising the move, saying it will put pressure on the state sector.
The Prime Minister's approval rating are branded catastrophic with rural voters in a new poll following the planned tax raid on farmers.
And Putin has apologised for the downing of the Azerbaijan Airlines plane, but stopped short of saying Russia was responsible.
President-elect Donald Trump has asked the US Supreme Court to delay an upcoming TikTok ban while he works on a political resolution.
And the top New Year resolution, no surprise here, folks, is to get fit, with 38% of you setting the target. We'll be finding out the tips to achieve your goals.
Good morning. Teenage sensation Luke Littler moves into the fourth round of the PDC World Darts Championship at the Ali Pali, despite not being at his best. And in football, Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson has urged his teammates to go ahead and make history. The Premier League leaders are in action today at West Ham.
Good morning. It's all changed as we see out 2024. We say goodbye to the Mr. Merc, but it's replaced by some wet and windy weather. Find out all the details coming up a little later on.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, good morning to you on this happy Sunday. Do you know, I'm not surprised that it's 38% of New Year's resolutions are to do with getting fit, because the gym is always packed in January.
Yeah, well, you went yesterday, straight after the show. Cameron was such a good person yesterday. You went straight after our breakfast show yesterday morning, straight to the gym.
Thing is, we're very lucky because there's one downstairs in the basement. It's really good, Aidan. Yeah, and it means that if I went home first, there is no way I would leave the house again because I'd just fall asleep. So if I force myself to go on my way down to the car, then it's easier.
You were very good. Some of us, went home and sat on the sofa and watched Gavin and Stacey. Finally watched Gavin and Stacey.
But you were lucky, Dawn, because you had a second Christmas, didn't you, yesterday?
Yeah. The husband did a second Christmas day for us and went home and surprised me with a lovely Christmas dinner. And then we sat on the sofa. Oh, yeah, it was really lovely. I was really surprised. And we had a glass of champagne and we watched Gavin and Stacey. So it was Christmas Day all over again. And I loved it.
It was good.
I'm sorry.
I fell asleep for 10 hours.
10 hours?
Yeah, I needed it, though. I've been doing all these hours and stuff, built up a little while. But that's the most uninterrupted sleep I've had, probably for about a couple of years, I would say.
Oh, my God.
Do you feel energised now?
Oh, without doubt, yeah, I'm ready for today.
That's good.
Don't you worry about that.
Oh, great.
Don't you worry about that.
Right. I'll put us to shame.
No, not so. I'll keep, my energy will reflect on both of you, don't I?
Right, OK. Well, I'm not liking the sound of your sport report already this morning, so... OK, shall we start with our Vladimir Putin? Why not? It's as good a place as any. He has apologised to the president of neighbouring Azerbaijan over the downing of the Azerbaijan Airlines commercial airliner in Russian space.
But he did fail to take responsibility for the Azerbaijan Airlines crashing after it had come under fire from Russian air defence missiles.
Joining us now is military historian and defence analyst Chris Newton. Where are you? There you are.
Oh, I'm here. Oh.
No. Chris, are you there?
I can hear you, Chris, that's for sure. Well, we'll hopefully speak to Chris a little bit later.
There
we go.
I'm here
Here
now.
he is.
Chris, what do we make of this? I mean, it's as close as Putin ever comes to admitting responsibility for anything.
Yeah, that's right. This is a very rare apology. Putin doesn't do apologies usually. It's pretty much, he sees it as a sign of weakness. It's ultimately an illustration that his position isn't really as good as he thinks it is. Azerbaijan is an important country for Russia, for Putin, not least as an important market for gas. And given that the European market and the Western market is pretty much closed off to Putin and Russia, it effectively means that Russia is more dependent on these other countries. But I wouldn't say it's a proper apology. Putin didn't admit that it was a Russian missile that ultimately brought down the aircraft, and essentially he blamed the Ukrainians. He said that effectively the air defences were activated as a result of Ukrainian drone strikes. Now there has been Ukrainian drone strikes in the in the Chechen region. I'm not quite sure whether it happened during this time, but effectively Putin, despite making this apology of sorts, it's still not really a proper apology. He didn't admit responsibility, and he doesn't seem to grasp, as the UK Foreign Office has said last night as well, he doesn't seem to really grasp the implications of the recklessness of Russia's actions and the fact that it potentially drags other civilians and other countries into the line of fire.
The Azerbaijani president has said the crash was caused by external physical and technological interference, but he did stop short of explicitly blaming Russia. Following the conclusion of the investigation, do you think that will change, or do you think the two countries are too close for him to physically blame Putin for what has happened here?
Yeah, I think both countries are essentially trying to put it in a diplomatic way. If Russia has any kind of influence over the investigation, then it's extremely unlikely that the investigation will totally conclude that Russia is responsible, or it was a Russian air defense system that did this. And you can see the Russians starting to build the narrative already that they're effectively blaming Ukraine and Ukrainian actions for the fact that the Russians activated their air defense systems. As I say, Azerbaijan is an important country for Putin, and Azerbaijan, as you indicated, Cameron, is also walking a diplomatic tightrope as well. So it remains to be seen whether it will be a full and independent investigation, and whether the investigation will be absolutely full in terms of its conclusions.
Chris, we're going into a new year now. I mean, Putin is still quite bullish about things, and as you say, not apologising, but he never does. We've got Trump coming into power in the new year. What do you think the direction of travel is going to be for the situation in Ukraine and Russia's attitude to the West in general going into the new year?
Yeah, I mean, the situation in Ukraine, I think in January we'll reach crunch time. You have, as you indicated, President Trump coming in, and it remains to be seen what his Ukraine policy is. I mean, he's indicated that he wants to bring the war ends within a day, but there's kind of mixed signals about what Trump will ultimately do, and if Trump does sort of withdraw aid to Ukraine, that has obviously severe implications to the ability of Ukraine entering the war. And Ukraine is also suffering some real problems in terms of manpower, and manpower is dwindling, and Zelensky will have to make a decision about whether he mobilizes younger people, as something that he's been reluctant to do. So at the moment, Putin has the strategic advantage. The Russians are continually making advances, and this is a very precarious moment for Ukraine and the war. And it remains to be seen, what Trump does, and ultimately does Ukraine continue to receive US aid. If it doesn't, then that really is a difficult situation for Ukraine and the West. And you can see Putin being bullish and knowing that he's in the driving seat at the moment.
OK, military historian and defence analyst Chris Newton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Worrying times, see what happens on that one.
Yes.
OK, now, in the latest Labour tax raid, middle-class families are set to be hit with 8,000 tax bills in 2025.
Well, it comes as the Chancellor yesterday announced a funding boost of £1.7 billion for state schools, whilst a VAT of 20% will be applied to private school fees from the 1st of January. Here's what Chancellor Rachel Reeves had to say.
I recognise that a lot of parents work hard to be able to send their children to private schools, but all parents are aspirational for their children, including the 94% of children who are in our state schools. And so by getting rid of the tax exemptions that exist before for private schools, we're able to invest £1.7 billion of money into our state schools so that they can recruit and retain the very best teachers so that all children can get a great start in life.
OK, elsewhere, a new polling by The Telegraph suggests just 1 in 5 believe Labour cares about people who live and work in the countryside, with reports that Keir Starmer has been warned his ratings have suffered a catastrophic fall amongst countryside voters angered by his family farm tax.
Well, let's speak now to the former mayor of Middlesbrough, Andy Preston. Andy, good morning to you. Let's start with the middle-class support, according to Labour, for the VAT on a tax rise on private schools. There seems to be a tricky balance for the Labour government because, of course, if parents are priced out of sending their child to private school, they end up in the state sector, potentially putting pressure on the state system, as some people would argue.
Absolutely. Good morning, Cameron. Good morning, Dawn. Hi. Yes, I mean, the whole movement to penalise, to tax the private school system was based on, in my opinion, malice, spite, and a desire to satisfy anger in the left wing of the Labour Party. And when Rachel Reeves gave her budget speech back at the very end of October, the biggest single cheer for all of the dozens or even hundreds of things she announced was for taxing private schools. Clearly, what's going to happen is many people are going to leave private schools and go into the state sector. And at very best, this tax will make no money. It might actually lose money, but it was never intended to. This is today part of a bigger story, I think, covered by The Telegraph, isn't it, about a huge tax raid. I have to say, having read The Telegraph's article today, it's part of an ongoing campaign by The Telegraph and a few other newspapers to present old news and basically describe Rachel Reeves as a bit of a devil. Now, I'm not here to defend Rachel Reeves by any means, but what The Telegraph has published today is really old news and nothing new. However, there's a new angle to it, and I'll be very quick with this, is that what someone has calculated is that the range of tax rises, including employer NI, that are coming in very soon, add up to the biggest single transfer of money from the private sector to the public sector, because, of course, Labour are using all of this money to fund public sector wage rises and create new government departments. So it's a huge transfer.
The thing is with that, I mean, it sounds like Rachel Reeves has, discussed all her plans with every middle-class family in the country. I mean, what the language she used about private schools in particular, why should they have embossed notepaper and AstroTurf football pitches? I mean, it sounded more the politics of envy rather than education. Now, Rachel Reeves would argue that the money raised by the VAT on private schools is going to fund 6,500 more teachers for state sector schools. But that actually works out, if you spread it across all the state schools in England and Wales, at one new teacher for every 3.8 schools. So that doesn't even work either, does it?
Dawn, you are spot on. It doesn't make any sense. And as I was saying, basically, this tax was never about tax. It was never about generating money to do good work and improve people's lives. It was about penalising a section of society that the left wing of the Labour Party is hell-bent on destroying and ruining. It was about the politics of envy, the politics of spite, and as I say again, it's really important, the biggest cheer, the loudest cheer out of hundreds of things announced at the budget speech on the 30th of October was for the tax on private schools. Not because it raised money, but because it hobbled Labour's arch-enemy, those who do well.
But despite many Labour politicians sending their own children to private schools.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always been the way, a great number. And similarly, and I don't want to be too nasty about Labour today, but Angela Rayner and others were always against the sale of council houses until they could buy their own. There's a lot of hypocrisy in politics, isn't there?
Andy, the Department for Education forecasts that 35,000 people is going to have to move into state schools. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has hit back at that, saying that when we took in many people from Ukraine and Hong Kong, the state schools were influx with people from those countries and they coped. She also makes the point that we've got a falling birth rate. So the pressure on state schools, Bridget Phillipson argues, won't be perhaps as great as she would put it, some people are scaremongering.
I think there's a hint of truth in what she's saying. I think she's being a little bit disingenuous. The truth is that, yes, birth rates are falling, and in 5, 6, 7 years' time, there'll be fewer kids at school than there are now. So it sounds like places are freeing up. That's not happening today. It's in the future, first of all. But secondly, that's not going to happen everywhere. Not every state school is going to have places free. Some will have lots of space and some won't have any. So that's just an excuse, really, what Bridget Phillipson is doing. She's got an ideology. She wants to penalise private schools and aspiring people, and she's using a bit of statistical data to try and justify it.
One of the other problems Labour are facing this morning, looking at the papers, Andy, is the fact of fall in popularity in rural areas, where they have many new Labour MPs. Let's not forget that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Labour won big, didn't they, in traditional heartlands. I'm sat in the middle of one now, Rishi Sunak's constituency, and I'm very much tuned into what's going on here with friends, family and associates, people that I mix with in the shops or whatever else. And Labour were never hugely popular here, but they got in some rural areas because people were sick of the Tories and they wanted change. But right now, Dawn, Labour's popularity has plummeted. This report is spot on, and they are in big trouble. There was a piece of research out yesterday, an opinion poll for Don't Divide Us, I think, and it showed Labour support retreating even further into the hyper-urban areas, what some people call the metropolitan elite. The last Labour stronghold looks like being parts of maybe West Midlands, but especially London, lots of constituencies in London. Expect to see a huge removal of Labour from any rural constituencies at all.
Indeed.
OK, former Mayor of Middlesbrough, Andy Preston, thank you for joining us.
Indeed. Yeah, worrying times. It's not good news for Labour at the moment, is it? I mean, it sounds like we're very anti-Labour. We're not. We're just reading literally the stories that are in your papers today. And that's a cross-section of papers, even the normally left-leaning newspapers as well.
Yeah, and it's reflecting the mood of the British public, potentially. And even Labour councillors are now attacking Sir Keir Starmer.
Yes, that's an interesting
Steve
story.
Edwards, a councillor for Dudley Council, is saying that Sir Keir Starmer's attack on the working class, our children and parents and grandparents, is unjustifiable. He lied to get elected. He does not deserve to be leader of the Labour Party. I'm sure Sir Keir Starmer would argue that point and say he's investing in public services to create a better quality of life for people across the country.
But it's interesting, the infighting has started already. I mean, that Labour councillor was particularly angry because a colleague of his lost his seat, as many local council elections are, to reform and to the Conservative Party.
Yeah, Labour were third in that by-election.
Which should have been a landslide for them. Any case, at GB News, we love to hear what you think every day. We'll be running our poll of the poll, and today we're asking, do you agree with half of Britons who think 2025 will be worse than 2024? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned. And the final result will be announced later in Nana Queer's show.
And for all our latest polls, news and how you can vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
But now it's time for the most important part of the day on this Sunday morning. Yes, it's a Sunday, whatever you're doing today. It's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, the weather is certainly set to change. We lose the mist and fog, but it's certainly turning much wetter and windier for most of us. Back to here and now, we still have some mist and murk around first thing this morning, especially across England and Wales. But I'm hopeful as the day goes on, this will start to break up more readily than it has done of late. So some afternoon sunshine for parts of England and Wales. Northern Ireland having a relatively dry day, but rather cloudy. But Scotland seeing plenty of wet weather, especially for western Scotland, with some heavy and persistent rain here. We have more in the way of brightness around, certainly a milder day. Could see highs reaching 10 to 11 degrees. So we see Sunday afternoon out on a fairly quiet note across many southern parts. Some late sunshine giving away to some clear spells overnight. Northern Ireland and much of northern England relatively dry apart from the odd spot of rain, where the main bulk of the rain really is going to be across Scotland, where some cold air beginning to tap in too, so we could see that rain turn increasingly to snow, especially across the higher ground. And really, if anything, as we go through the course of the night, that rain just intensifies across parts of Scotland. A very wet start to the early hours of Monday morning. Again, some snow across the higher ground. Warnings are in force right throughout Monday, and they will continue into New Year's Eve as well. So if you do have any travel plans across Scotland, do be aware and stay alert to the latest warnings. Further south, a relatively quiet start to Monday. Some sunshine around, especially across the far south, but again, a fair bit of cloud around. Maybe just the odd shower across the far south, but again, most of the rain will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland later on, with potentially some rain just also arriving into northern England. Mild for most of us, with the exception of the far north, where it will start to turn increasingly cold.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, we'll be taking a look back at the big royal tours of 2024. That's next. This is GB News Breakfast with Cameron and Dawn.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Donna Ida, who joins us now. And Donna, you look spectacular in your gorgeous denim jumpsuit.
Thank you.
And accessories. And it's important, isn't it, sometimes, just to keep things simple?
I always keep things simple. I travel a lot, I work long hours, and I don't want to think too much about what I'm wearing. So for me, one and done is perfect. Good accessories, fresh hair, nice makeup, and you can go anywhere, including GB News when you didn't know what was happening.
There we go.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Straight off the plane.
Can we ask you some of our top denim questions?
Yes.
Because Stephen Dixon, the presenter of The Breakfast Show who's just on, said that double denim to him is an absolute no-go.
Oh, what does he
Is that true?
Don't have him on again, darling.
OK. We're telling me
I
fact.
love double denim.
Really?
I love it. I think it is so cool.
Does it have to be a different
I was going
tones?
to say double denim, same colours.
Or same
I
tones?
like the... For me, I actually do like the same. Think Saint Laurent 70s. There's an amazing one that we're doing that's going to look great on you in the new season. The Joan Jean, we've got the City Slicker shirt. Oh, it's amazing. If it's done well, it's perfect. And I like it in a paler blue, but a good mid to dark. Very chic.
You go.
No, well, I was just thinking, little old me, not quite sure
You'd look amazing
what to wear
in
this
it.
morning. How
was a
do
bit
guys
stressed.
pull off denim?
For me, if I was dressing you, I would have put you in a pair of jeans this morning with his amazing jumper. Gorgeous watch.
Black, blue?
Black denim I do like. Men don't like it so much. Men like charcoal denim.
Oh, I don't like grey.
Charcoal. I love grey, and the best seller for men is charcoal denim.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. It's Sunday morning, just in case you were panicking and thinking it was Monday or possibly Friday. None of us know, to be honest with you. But it is actually Sunday, and it's the 29th of December. So chill, sit on the sofa and keep us company. Interesting message coming in already. We're having the debate about our... the papers not being good for the Labour Party this morning. And Ernie says, Dawn Cameron, 6 long-serving Labour councillors have stood down or gone independent in Newcastle upon Tyne in protest at the withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance for pensioners. A quote from one of them was, "And we won't be the last."
Interesting. I mean, similar to Steve Edwards' views, the councillor from where? Dudley, from Dudley. We've also had Anita get in touch. She says they pay enough, Labour pay enough to their paymasters, the unions, and put us in more debt. Starmer and co has done nothing to us but caused the biggest tax burden on all of us, robbing the pensioners, screwing the farmers and the working people. Strong views from Anita there.
Yeah, for people they said they would protect.
Yeah.
Especially the working people.
The Labour government, of course, arguing they're raising taxes to invest in public services,
Tax has
but
to come
obviously...
from somewhere.
Yeah,
right,
well,
OK.
yeah.
Well, this is you, isn't it?
It is me.
This is your normal beat, the royal beat.
Yes, multitasking today. Members of the royal family travelled to Australia, Samoa and South Africa, and so did I, earlier this year. Despite a gruelling 12 months of health battles, the King and Queen spent time down under, while the Prince of Wales travelled to Cape Town for his environmental Earthshot Prize. Should we have a look back?
Yeah, go on, have a look back at what a year you've had, Cameron. Go on, go for it.
The royal family was propelled onto the global stage this year, representing brand Britain and deploying their soft power despite their private health battles. The King and Queen travelled thousands of miles to Australia, the first time His Majesty had visited as the country's head of state and the first reigning king to step foot on its soil.
Welcome to Australia. Lovely to have you here.
Partly due to the King's cancer diagnosis, the trip lasted only 6 days, visiting Sydney and Canberra. Hailed by crowds, but heckled by individuals. Senator Lydia Thorpe was widely condemned for her outburst and was symbolically censored by Australian lawmakers. Meanwhile, the King made a point of acknowledging the traditions and lives of Indigenous communities and spent time listening to their experiences. Republican protesters were kept well back by police when Their Majesties visited the Sydney Opera House. An estimated crowd of well-wishers exceeded 10,000 people. Then Their Majesties travelled more than 4,000 miles into the middle of the South Pacific to visit Samoa, first for a short state visit, followed by the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, the first time King Charles has presided over the conference as its head.
Since this is the first occasion on which I find myself attending this gathering of our family of nations as head of the Commonwealth, it gives my wife and myself enormous pleasure and pride to be with you for this 27th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
I have hope and I have that optimism that these guys and girls can change our future.
Meanwhile, the Prince of Wales flew to Cape Town for his 4th annual Earthshot Prize, designed to find solutions to repair the planet in this critical decade. The first time the prize was held on the African continent, Prince William was keen to spotlight African innovation and young people. Earthshot Prize Ambassador Robert Irwin spoke to GB News.
When you think of the Earthshot Prize, instantly you think of Prince William. His devotion and his dedication to conservation is unparalleled. It is absolutely amazing. And it's so encouraging to see someone, of course, with a brilliant platform that's using that platform 100% to create positive change for our environment.
When's your next match?
Royal sources have confirmed the King will resume a more normal-looking programme of international travel next year. The Prince of Wales hopes he and the Princess of Wales will carry out more international travel too. Both households, however, are keeping tight-lipped about the destinations. Cameron Walker, GB News.
I tell you, that was one hell of a trip. It's going to knock the stuffing out of you. I mean, you were obviously there with them, Cameron. I mean, the flight alone is a killer.
Yeah, it certainly is. The jet lag wasn't great, but of course they could fly in a nice Australian government plane for some of it.
But
and
it's
I'm
still,
sure they went
you
to
know,
economy.
having cancer treatment, it's a long flight, no matter what comfortable plane you're in. And then to work as soon as you hit the ground.
And it was a number of engagements a day as well. I think 10 was the average per day. And as you say, they're both in their 70s. King undergoing cancer treatment, but he was a trooper and he seemed to really thrive and love it. And so did the Australian people. But yeah, there's lots of long lists, I understand, for next year. So there's lots of potential places the King and Queen and Prince and Princess of Wales will go, but nothing has been finalised just yet.
OK, well, hopefully it'll be more positive and you better get your passport ready.
Yeah.
Off again. OK, now, how good were you over Christmas? Were you on the naughty list or the nice list? Because if you were on the naughty list, we might be able to cheer you up. Because we are giving away £50,000 in tax-free cash in the new year.
Yeah, it really could all be yours in our biggest ever Great British giveaway. Here's all the details of how you can enter.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Oh, good luck indeed. That's just about the time the credit card bills from Christmas and New Year come in, isn't it? Oh, what could you do with that, eh? That would sort you out, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
So, OK, still to come. Aidan will be here to go through all the sport, and if he mentions Liverpool and West Ham who are playing later on, I'm going to punch him. This is GB News. Here's Cameron. I'm Dawn. We'll see you soon.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, joining us now is Feng Shui expert Karina Sophia, who's going to share some of the best ways to ensure that our homes are still feeling calm as well as beautifully decorated this Christmas time.
One of the Feng Shui myths is that Feng Shui is all about moving furniture, and it isn't at all. Oh. Well, there is a little bit of that. It is about the flow of energy, but it starts outside, so there's lots of different forms of Feng Shui. So what we're going to talk about today is one form called Flying Stars Feng Shui, and there's another one that's classical, and form Feng Shui starts outside. If a 5-year-old would walk past your house and be happy, then the energy will.
I love that.
So if a 5-year-old would like to see more, would like to come in and would touch anything and not get hurt, then it's a good thing and the energy is feeling good and wants to come in as well.
What about the light colours? Does that matter? Does that come into play?
Yes, there are different colours. Depending on the direction, the compass direction of your home, there are good colours that support energy inside the home. So if your home is facing north, for instance, then it would be sitting south, and the inherent energy of the south is fire. So you want to have red or green, which is wood, that fuels the fire, and that supports the inside of the home. Now, I just painted my door red a couple of days ago, and then I got this opportunity, so don't underestimate it. You want to decorate your tree with whatever you want to manifest. Whatever it is that you want to bring into your life. So this speaks for itself. It says joy.
Oh.
And it has a little bell
I
on
like
it.
that idea. I can get on board with this. So you decorate your tree with things you'd like to see in your life.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to put some joy.
That would be nice.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The time is 6:34. Time to go through the latest sports with Aidan McGee. Welcome.
La.
Well, it's all right. We're not going to do football just yet.
Football's a second story.
Don't worry, second story, because Luke Littler, 17-year-old darts player, did very well last 16 last night.
Yeah, he did. I mean, look, he wasn't at his absolute best, but to be honest with you, you're not going to go through an entire tournament looking completely imperious. He looked a little bit ropey in one or two of the sets, but still, 4-1, he was able to get through against a fella, Ian White, who used to play against his grandfather up in a pub league in Runcorn. So he didn't have as much success against Luke Littler as he did against somebody 2 generations ahead of him.
So is it the other chap's in his 50s?
It is 50. Yeah, it doesn't matter, though, 54.
I can't think of anything more depressing than being beaten by a teenager when you're in your 50s.
No, when he's that good.
Right,
He's called the Nuke for a reason. But, yeah, look, he wasn't looking fantastic. He's not played for a little while either, but he's into the 4th round and he's safely in there. And then tonight you've got Luke Humphries, the champion who beat Luke Littler in the final last year. He's up against Peter Wright. A little bit of a spat developed between those two. Peter Wright knows he's trying to claw back a bit of a deficit here because he's not been in brilliant form in the last couple of years since he won his title. So he's thrown a few mind games in there. Luke Humphries responded by saying, I've only got to win one more world title, and I've matched Peter Wright's career, and Peter Wright's in his mid-50s as well. But it's one of those sports, Cameron, where you can get people in their 50s going up against teenagers.
Yeah.
Luke Humphries, 27, so still relatively young in darts terms. But a big night last night. I mean, I was inundated with requests for tickets. Luckily, I was sleeping for 10 hours, so I was able to shoo them all away. And by the time I woke up, it was too late, unfortunately. But Michael van Gerwen, former champion, Dutch guy, 4-2 win against Brendan Dolan. He's through as well. And as I say, we're getting some... it was quite worrying in the first week or so because we had a lot of seeds being eliminated, but we are seeing some stellar names. You want the big names in the latter rounds of the tournaments, of any tournament, don't you? And we're beginning to see that now, so it's looking like it's going to be a fantastic final week.
Now, Dawn, dare we mention a certain match happening at 5:15 today between West Ham...
Sorry, did you say something?
I don't know. And Liverpool.
West Ham are not in bad form at all. Not in bad form at all. No, but look, listen, this is Alisson, the goalkeeper. He was part of that Champions League winning side in 2019. There's a picture for our radio listeners. He's on screen, his yellow shirt.
He is.
Brazil shirt. No, it's his Liverpool shirt, actually. I've got that wrong. But he won the Champions League in 2019 with Liverpool, followed it up with a Premier League win the following year. It's a bit disappointing they haven't won it since then because Manchester City have been so dominant, although Liverpool run them close a few times. Alisson has had injuries this season. He's been replaced by the Irish international goalkeeper, Caoimhin Kelleher, but he's back in the side now. And he says, look, let's just not concentrate on winning the Premier League. Everything's on the table now. The FA Cup's on the table, the Carabao Cup's on the table, and so is the Champions League. But they play West Ham today, and we've got a brilliant roster of fixtures today as well. So Man City in action today.
Day.
And I want to touch on the tennis before we go, because we've got an interesting grab. The bad boy of tennis, Nick Kyrgios, has basically hit out at 2 the world number ones in women and the male section, Iga Swiatek and Yannick Sinner, and on account of them failing his drugs test. I'm not going to say any more. Let's hear exactly what he's got to say.
It's been handled horrifically in our sport, and 2 world number ones both getting done for doping is disgusting for our sport. It's a horrible look. And yeah, the tennis integrity right now, and everyone knows it, but no one wants to speak about it. It's awful. Like, it's actually awful. And it's not okay, so
that's Nick Kyrgios there, himself a bit of an underachiever in tennis, but always did it clean, and he's very angry about these 2 world number ones bringing the sport into disrepute. I'm going to dig down into it further in the next hour, but for now I thought it was a really interesting grab, and for somebody to use the words disgusting is unprecedented. Not something you hear very often in tennis.
Aidan, thank you.
See you later. See you in the next hour. OK, it's still to come. If you are in search of some winter sun, we've got the forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations for you right now.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, it's going to remain fairly unsettled for parts of Cyprus and Greece. This area of cloud and rain continues to linger here. But for much of Italy, Spain and Portugal, a fairly quiet couple of days with some late winter sunshine here. A few showers for Madeira, maybe just creeping into Canaries. But as we approach New Year's Day itself, it should be fairly fine and dry across the Canaries.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
But I mean, okay, well, sorry, of course, chatting about football there.
Yeah.
Which is never a good thing. Okay, any case, coming up, I've got the amazing Lynn May and Kane Blackwell going through all your newspaper headlines for you.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
On the 8th of October at Battersea Arts Centre, a new orchestra launched its inaugural season. The orchestra, which is named Chromatica, is formed of some of the best young musicians in Britain. They're due to perform in traditional venues and in community spaces. The aim is to bring their youth and dynamism to a wide repertoire of music. Predominantly, they'll work with emerging conductors who will have the chance to shape the orchestra and its repertoire. To share her experiences of bringing the ensemble together, I'm joined by the violinist and Chromatica orchestra lead, Maren Bosma. To what extent is this novel? To what extent is this new ground?
Well, new ground, it is new ground in a sense that this is a completely new orchestra. Obviously, in the current sort of cultural climate, it's not really easy to set up a new orchestra. And so in that sense, it's a novelty for us to kind of try and carve out our space in the current climate of musical orchestras and musicians in Britain.
Yes, I mean, it's quite odd in a way to think of a new orchestra because the ones that we have tend to be struggling and numbers indeed have been reduced. I used to be associated with an orchestra which unfortunately went under. You've got some private backing for this.
Yeah.
Why do you think the private backers have been willing to give you support? What is it that they see as your unique selling proposition?
Well, Chromatica Orchestra essentially is an early career orchestra. So we're formed of all sort of top musicians who've graduated in, say, the last sort of 5 to 10 years. Because everyone is of that generation, there is a sort of enthusiasm and dynamism that we bring to the stage I think is quite unique. The orchestra's mission, it's really focused on creating opportunities for young emerging musicians.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Joining us now to go through the papers and making the news in general is the wonderful Lynn May and Kane Blackwell. Here's West Ham, yay, I've got company. And I've just found out Cameron is from a Chelsea family.
I'm from a Chelsea family, yeah, but I support them in the loosest possible sense. Just traditionally, my family has supported Chelsea. I'm not the best avid football fan.
written in my contract that I don't work with Chelsea fans.
Well, my family's Leicester and we got thrashed, so...
Oh, yeah, there is
roundabouts.
There is someone worse off. There's more than football to talk about, though. Lynn, we're going to start off with the fact that we are all going to be skint in 2025.
Well, I think many of us already feel skint in 2024.
Yeah, there is that.
So I just don't know what to say with Labour anymore. They don't read the room, and the issues we're faced with now, families face 8k New Year tax rate, and this is because, obviously, the budget.
It's the front page of the Telegraph, isn't it? It says flash. Yeah.
And it's so funny because, you know, I was saying this for such a long time, and many people said, you know, how can you think of not supporting Labour? You're, like, brown, you're black, you're mixed race. And I thought, do you know what? I care about money. Like, what does my skin have to do with it? And now all those same people are messaging me saying, I can't believe the tax raids that Labour have implemented. And I'm like, well, there we go. And, you know, Andrew Griffith, the Shadow Business Secretary, said this level of tax rate is completely unacceptable and fails to understand what it's like to try and bring up a family to a reasonable standard. So you can see the people that are going to be hit the most as well are the ones that actually, they may not be wealthy, they may be just on a decent salary, they're hardworking, they get up in the morning, however, they don't get any support from the government.
And Keir Starmer's ratings are catastrophic with rural voters at the moment.
I mean, it's terrible. I mean, exactly what you were saying, Lynn, with the tax situation. You know, Labour have failed to understand that you cannot tax your way to growth, which they talk about massively. You know, and, you know, Labour cannot be trusted on taxation, period. It's just, they never have been able to be trusted and they never will be able to be trusted. And, you know, the IFS have even said, you know, these are levels that are rising. We've never even seen these before. Like, this is absolutely terrifying for millions of hard-working, working people, the very people that during that general election, Labour went out and said, we will not tax
But then what would you say to people that say, or the Labour Party that say, well, there was this incredible black hole that the Conservatives left?
Well, I would
you say to that? How do we plug that?
What I would say is, don't get me wrong, I think we could have done things a lot better. I think we should have got rid of the, you know, we should have reduced the deficit a lot more. But what I would say is Labour have increased that black hole tenfold. You know, you've actually got, when they're giving money to train drivers and, you know, putting huge amounts of money into the public sector, where actually we need to be looking at cutting, you know, and actually looking at ways to reduce public sector spending and all of those sorts of things and waste and all of that sort of stuff. This is where the Labour Party should actually be going into government and looking at these things in the round. And actually what they've done is increased this spending, which is only going to go on to the consumer.
Labour would argue they're investing in public services to improve the public services, which is why they're increasing taxes.
But the point is, the Conservatives in government put loads of money into things like the NHS and other institutions, when actually that's not the problem. The money isn't the problem, it's the reforms that we need. It's actually going into these institutions and actually saying, what do we need to cut? What do we need to make differences here so we can actually save money and actually be a nimble, agile service that's actually going to be value for money for the taxpayer?
And they've said that they're not going to hit working people, and that's exactly what they've done.
Yeah.
That's my issue. Even if they did have to, you know, hike up some of the taxes, it's not exactly on, you know, the oil companies. It's not exactly, I'm not saying I'm for that, but the majority of people are going to feel what they've done, and that's the issue, isn't it?
Well, let's stay on the raising money from taxes, because we all know there are problems in this country and we do need to raise money from somewhere. Lynn, this is your story from The Observer. The NHS urgent repair costs triple in a decade, which brings both main political parties into not doing enough to protect NHS buildings.
I don't know. I have a different take on this whole, you know, the NHS, waiting lists, funding. They receive so much funding. If you look at Amanda Pritchard, the chief exec, she's on 260k a year, more than our leader. What is she doing? What are they doing? Even West Streeting of the Labour Party has come out and said the NHS waste 10 billion every year. We've also seen one of the biggest increases in terms of an exodus of nurses, up by 43% of them leaving. So there's nothing being done to retain the NHS staff. No one wants to work in the NHS because they're overworked. Sorry to have to raise this issue, the elephant in the room, immigration. The more people we let in and the less people we have working in the NHS, it's just not going to work, as well as having an ageing population. So this whole, I think we're going to see, whether it's Labour, Reform, Conservative, we're going to have to see certain elements being privatised because we're not doing anything else about it.
Well, we need a genuine conversation about the NHS in this country. And for too long, if you talk about reform of the NHS, you want to destroy the NHS. You know, it has always been extremes. There's never actually a conversation about, is this system working in the 21st century? In 1945, when the NHS was, founded, free at the point of use and all of this sort of stuff, it works then. We're a different country. We have changed now fundamentally, and we actually need to change the NHS fundamentally
To
as well.
be fair to the Labour Party, Wes Streeting has come out and said all of those things.
He has.
I mean, if anyone's going to do it, I do believe that they are the ones who will do it because they've got the political capital too. If you're a Tory and you reform the NHS...
They can get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. They can get away with it. Tories can't.
Yeah.
So, and that's why for too long, I think Tories particularly have shied away from it. It's wrong. I don't think they should have. Actually should have been bold and actually gone, and the public would, I think, actually respected that a bit more.
But this is where Labour struggle because their left electorate or people who vote for them that lean on the left, they don't like Wes Streeting that much. They don't like the idea of reformation. But then, people that tend to be centre-right don't like Labour anyway, historically.
No, exactly.
So where do they sit?
No, exactly. The left of the Labour Party love people like Bridget Phillipson. They're these ideological policies, people like her.
Seamless link to your story in the Telegraph.
Well, exactly. Well, you know me. But no, I mean, Bridget Phillipson, I think she'll go down as the worst education secretary this country will have ever seen.
Gosh, she's been in the job 6 months.
I know.
I
fundamentally do. She is... these free speech laws that she went in there, court documents have revealed that she went in there and actually actively went to, get rid of these really vital laws to protect free speech in our universities, in our schools, for our, academics. This is absolutely Orwellian.
Just explain this, Kane. What specifically is she trying to get rid of?
So this was a bill that the Conservatives brought in. It was actually to ensure that people on campuses, university actually had protections of free speech. So, they couldn't be, defunded or got rid of, these sorts of things that actually we were seeing in our universities quite prevalently. And, the Conservatives took action to stop that. Now, Labour have come in and basically on day dot, try to get rid of this. And it is absolutely, like I say, it's Orwellian. But, she's an education secretary who is fundamentally ideological. She believes...
It's desperately needed as well. I remember just doing my postgraduate at uni and I was speaking about Brexit. Whether it's a success or not, whether people like it or not, it was my view at the time. And the lecturers, the students, I was really battered in terms of the way how I came across for it. And it needs to happen. Yeah. And also, it's like I said earlier, they're not reading the room. Already the polls have suggested that Labour will lose 200 seats. So they're not listening. They're not listening to anyone, the people that have voted them in, even the people on the other side. So, they're careering off a cliff, and I don't mind, to be honest with you, because I didn't want Labour to get it.
We've got 5 years of people careering off cliffs, which is not... I mean, and the Conservatives, you had 14 years to sort everything out. And
no, completely.
You messed up as well, and that's why people voted for the change, and we just don't seem to be...
The problem was, the change that people wanted wasn't what they got, and it wasn't what Labour were offering anyway, but... I think the point was, people just wanted a change.
A change. That was their slogan, wasn't it? It was their slogan.
Exactly. And they said they were going to do that. Whether or not we should have believed them, I never did. And I think a lot of people didn't, viewers at home didn't either. But what I think needs to happen now, and this actually goes to this whole sort of argument that Reform and the Conservatives are having at the moment, unless the right are united, like they have been for decades and decades and decades, Labour will continue to win. And that is not good for our country.
I don't know. I don't think... if they continue the way they're going now, I can't see them winning, can you? I can't. But irrespective... I know it splits the vote and so on and so on, but we shouldn't be pushed into this corner of having to, pander to this two-party system and repeatedly, going for the same parties that have had chance after chance.
The thing is, for better or worse, we're in a first-past-the-post system, which means it isn't quite difficult for other up-and-coming parties to get in.
And we had a referendum on, you know, on changing the electoral system. People didn't want to do it. They weren't interested. You know, we have done that. And to be honest, you know, first-past-the-post does, you know, give us most of the time strong governments, you know, throughout history has given us stable, strong governments.
It's not working anymore.
At the moment, you know, we've seen ups and downs, but what I would say is this, you know, this Labour majority is very paper thin. It's not very deep. It's very shallow. It might be wide, but it's shallow. And the reason for that is because of the split on the right was allowed them to get through. And it's the same what happened with
But people are tired,
Labour.
like I said, and, you know, it's a shame because with reforms ticket going up, even if they surpass Conservatives, they're only going to get, at the moment, 75 seats, which is just not enough, is it?
No, it's not.
What do you do?
And that's the point, though. And I think this is what Conservatives, and I'm talking small c and big C Conservatives, need to actually look at themselves and say, what is the most important thing here? Is it, you know, getting rid of Labour and changing fundamentally this country and making it a Conservative one again, culturally and economically? Or is it fighting between ourselves?
Lynn and Kane, you're coming back in the next hour with more stories, including what Sadiq Khan's doing in London. But first, let's get the weather in London and all across the country for you.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, the weather is certainly set to change. We lose the mist and fog, but it's certainly turning much wetter and windier for most of us. Back to here and now, we still have some mist and murk around first thing this morning, especially across England and Wales. But I'm hopeful as the day goes on, this will start to break up more readily than it has done of late. So some afternoon sunshine for parts of England and Wales. Northern Ireland having a relatively dry day, but rather cloudy. But Scotland seeing plenty of wet weather, especially for Western Scotland, with some heavy and persistent rain here. With more in the way of brightness around, certainly a milder day. You could see highs reaching 10 to 11 degrees. So we see Sunday afternoon out on a fairly quiet note across many southern parts. Some late sunshine giving away to some clear spells overnight. Northern Ireland and much of northern England relatively dry apart from the odd spot of rain, where the main bulk of the rain really is going to be across Scotland, where some cold air beginning to tap in too, so we could see that rain turn increasingly to snow, especially across the higher ground. And really, if anything, as we go through the course of the night, that rain just intensifies across parts of Scotland. A very wet start to the early hours of Monday morning. Again, some snow across the higher ground. Warnings are in force right throughout Monday, and they will continue into New Year's Eve as well. So if you do have any travel plans across Scotland, do be aware and stay alert to the latest warnings. Further south, a relatively quiet start to Monday. Some sunshine around, especially across the far south, but again, a fair bit of cloud around. Maybe just the odd shower across the far south, but again, most of the rain will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland later on, with potentially some rain just also arriving into northern England. Mild for most of us, with the exception of the far north, where it will start to turn increasingly cold.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won $25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week is Chocolate Week, the ultimate celebration of everything rich, sweet and indulgent.
Yes, and we now have the best person in the studio with us to satisfy all of your chocolate cravings. We're joined now by master chocolatier Ollie the Choc. Ollie,
Hello.
really
Hey,
good
Ollie.
to see you this
Thank you
morning.
for having me.
And you brought some of your chocolate in with you.
I did. I brought some
Breakfast.
tasting samples. You're very welcome to help yourself.
So what have you got here? Tell us.
So this is my signature chocolate. I call it the Holy Grail. It's got sea salt flakes, crushed Oreo, caramel fudge pieces, very Moorish.
I love a caramel and salt combo, just, you know. I feel like you see it everywhere now. Look.
You won't be disappointed.
Look, I want everyone to see a close-up of this one. Can we get a shot on this one? So this is Oreo, there we are, caramel and salt. Do you want to try some?
You go first. Help yourselves. And then this bar of chocolate is a little bit of a wild card. That's a mystery flavour, so...
OK, I love a mystery.
I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Sold on this one. This one's amazing.
Are you?
Oreo, caramel.
That's my biggest seller.
I'll keep my palate clean for this. So this is a mystery flavour.
You've got to guess what that is.
Is that a nut in there, I see? Right, here we go. Ready?
I'm not saying anything.
Talk us through.
Very crunchy.
For me, I'm all about textures in chocolate.
Me too.
It has got a good crunch to it, hasn't it? It's not the kind of flavour that you would expect.
Oh, I can't get it.
Is it sweet? Is it salty?
Wait, no, it's salty, yeah.
It's
OK,
salty.
hang on, bit more.
OK.
Bit more.
I mean, just keep going.
Crisps? Wait,
It is crispy, it's crunchy. Could it
All
be
right.
crisps?
I think it could be crisps. Yeah, it's crisps.
So what flavour?
Salt and vinegar. Cheese and onion.
Yes,
Salt
nailed
and
it. You know.
Oh, you're much better than me.
Love that.
Do you know what? I think I've got a bit of a cold, so my taste buds are
Oh,
off.
you're going to blame that, are you?
That's my excuse. That's delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. The education secretary claims middle classes will support the VAT instruction on private schools.
Richard Phillipson has said pushy parents will demand more from the state schooling system after being priced out by rising fees.
But many are heavily criticising the move, saying it will put pressure on the state sector.
The Prime Minister's approval ratings are branded catastrophic, with rural voters in a new poll following the planned tax raid on farmers.
Meanwhile, Putin has apologised for the downing of the Azerbaijan Airlines plane, but stopped short of saying Russia was responsible.
President-elect Donald Trump has asked the US Supreme Court to delay an upcoming TikTok ban while he works on a political resolution.
And the top New Year resolution is to get fit, with 38% of us setting a target. We'll be finding out the tips to achieve all our goals.
Morning, it's a huge day of Premier League action, with Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson urging his teammates to make history in their pursuit of not just a treble, but even an historic quad. In tennis, meanwhile, tennis bad boy Nick Kyrgios has had some choice words for two of the sport's biggest names.
Good morning. It's all changed as we see out 2024. We say goodbye to the Mr. Merc, but it's replaced by some wet and windy weather. Find out all the details coming up a little later on.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast. So, good morning. Thank you for joining us on this festive Sunday. It's still festive, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
Still got the trees up in the
Of course it
studio,
is.
the decorations here.
12th night is the end of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well-
So, but we had some Grinches yesterday messaging in, taking their trees down on Boxing Day.
Yes. Well, I suppose one way you're starting afresh for the new year, aren't you, with no trees to take down? But I thought it, as you say, Aidan, meant to be 12 days.
Yeah, it's very commercialised. We just think that it's all about opening presents, and once that's done, that's it. You know?
Am I still banned from saying the word Twixmas?
No, it is a horrible word. I hate it. I used it loads yesterday, but Twixmas is that time in between Christmas and New Year where you've got no idea what day it is.
Now
you
you've
should be
said
doing.
it. Now you've said it. I've realised how much of common it's part of common parlance now, isn't it? Twixmas.
I think it is. I think
it's going to be in the
knows
dictionary.
really what it means.
It's
going to
be. No, it will be. I bet you.
Yeah, I'm
Anyone.
probably. Yeah.
But where's the word come from? It doesn't sound like Christmas.
Come from a chocolate bar, possibly.
Betwixt.
Betwixt.
Betwixt in between.
There you go.
See, betwixt, yes. So is that English literature or something?
I'm not a walking dictionary, I'm afraid, so I have absolutely no idea.
Right, it does sum up this time of year when you really... But it is a Sunday morning, so you haven't got to go anyway, so you can sit on your sofa, have a nice cup of tea, have a nice breakfast, maybe a fry-up. I mean, it's still, it's still time. You're still allowed to do that.
Turkey pie.
Turkey pie for breakfast.
Well, yeah, why not? I mean, look, when you've slept as long as I have, your your hours are a little bit out, turkey pie would be.
Yeah.
You've slept for 10 hours. I mean,
Yeah.
Aidan's been mentioning all morning now that he had 10 hours sleep.
I'm so pleased about it.
So jealous.
Yeah.
It's so rare.
Well, that's why you're bouncing around the room and full of enthusiasm this morning.
Well, if you are having a great British fry-up, we'd love to hear it and make us all jealous here, because I'm very hungry already, and it's only 7:03, so please let us know.
Yeah, and bearing in mind, one of the stories we're covering is those New Year resolutions and how we're all wanting to get fit for the New Year and stop eating so much and drinking so much and stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of leftover Christmas chocolates, aren't there?
Yeah.
Oh, you've got leftover chocolate?
I do, yeah.
That's weird.
I know, really?
No. I has went on Boxing Day.
I got a lot of chocolate.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I'm working my way through it slowly.
Could have brought some in.
I could have. Well, I bought in loads yesterday
Right.
for the producers. Unfortunately, I did not bring any today, and now I'm being told off in my ear by the director.
The only thing Cameron's given me all Christmas, despite working together for a long time now over the last week.
Oh, here we go.
Cold.
Here we go. It was not me that gave you the cold on the 23rd of December. Someone in this office started the plague in the GB News office. It wasn't me. It was not me. Anyway,
We've had someone going home, I think.
We have as well. Yeah, get well
And
soon,
that's your fault
everybody.
too.
It's my fault as well? OK. Well, do let us know if you're also suffering over this Christmas
if
period.
you're feeling poorly, he's to blame, all right? But we are wishing you well.
The whole country.
OK. Now, we're not going to cheer you up much this time round either, because Labour's tax raid on middle-class families means we're all going to be hit with £8,000 tax bills in £8,000 tax bills in 2025.
Yeah, it comes as the Chancellor yesterday announced a funding boost of £1.7 billion for state schools, whilst a VAT of 20% will be applied to private school fees from the 1st of January. Here is what Chancellor Rachel Reeves had to say on this.
I recognise that a lot of parents work hard to be able to send their children to private schools, but all parents are aspirational for their children, including the 94% of children who are in our state schools. And so by getting rid of the tax exemptions that exist before for private schools, we're able to invest £1.7 billion of money into our state schools so that they can recruit and retain the very best teachers so that all children can get a great start in life.
Elsewhere, new polling by The Telegraph today suggests just 1 in 5 believe Labour cares about people who live and work in the countryside. With reports that Keir Starmer has been warned his ratings have suffered a catastrophic fall among countryside voters, angered by his family farm tax.
Well, we're joined by the former Mayor of Middlesbrough, Andy Preston. Andy, good morning to you. Let's start with the middle class support VAT on private schools, according to the Labour Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. Do you think middle class parents are going to be welcoming this move?
Hi, Cameron. That's a hell of a bold claim, isn't it, that middle class parents support the tax rise? I am very sceptical of that. And if there's a grain of truth in it, I think that it's coming from middle-class parents that don't send their kids to private school. Anyone that does is understandably furious. I think the public are quite baffled by this because they're hearing mixed messages. But the truth is, it will, in theory, raise some money for the government to do good work. And maybe that sounds great. However, what isn't factored in fully is that lots of private school kids are now going to flood to state schools with increased costs, increased overcrowding. This is not really a tax decision. It was an ideological, spite-driven move in the budget that got the biggest cheer of the whole of the budget speech.
35,000 pupils will move to the state schools, according to forecast by the Department for Education. The Education Secretary saying that we've coped with Hong Kong, an influx of Hong Kong and Ukrainian children into British state schools, and because there is a falling birth rate, the effect won't be quite as much.
Yeah, there is a falling birth rate, and I think Bridget Phillipson has been truthful in that, but I also think that she's using a little bit of statistical data to try and fudge things and mislead people. There is a declining birth rate, and in 5, 6, 7 years, there will be some free available places in state schools. But it's not going to be across the board, Cameron. It's going to be in some schools. Some schools will have loads of places and some will have none. This movement from the private sector into the state sector is going to be universal. So loads of state schools will categorically be overloaded with new kids because of this tax.
I mean, you know, the vast majority of children in this country do go to ordinary state schools. And Labour are just wanting to give every child a fair and decent education. That is what's behind this. And their argument is, why should private schools be given an exemption on VAT? No other businesses are. So why are they a different case? Why should they be a different case?
It's a very good question. The roots of this go back decades, and basically decades ago, all of education was taken out of any level of VAT or similar taxes. So there is no tax on university fees, on higher education, further education, or private private schools also. It's not a new thing. It's not a tax loophole. It's a deliberate government policy. And Labour is changing that. To be honest, in my opinion, it's because the left-wing element of the Labour Party has a problem with private schools, and they want to punish those who do send their kids there. Is it going to raise any money? It's highly doubtful, but it got a huge chew in the budget because it's the politics of envy and spite.
The state school system at the moment in the United Kingdom, or particularly England and Wales, can sometimes feel a little bit like a bit of a postcode lottery. Of course, we hear many stories over the last 10 years, 20 years or so of parents really trying to get their kid into a better catchment area. Is this going to just exacerbate the problem?
It will absolutely exacerbate the problem. And lots of politicians are hypocrites. And we're talking about Labour now. So lots of Labour politicians are hypocrites. And what they're doing is they make sure that their kids go to the very, very best state schools by moving to certain areas, by buttering up the governors of certain schools. There's a huge amount of hypocrisy. There are many state schools that are effectively private schools because of the intake that they have, the pupil-teacher ratios. And I can guarantee you that Bridget Phillipson's kids will go to an amazing state school that's as good as many or even most private schools. The fact whether you pay for it or not doesn't matter. It's because your parents are middle class and you're affluent. What Labour don't object to is that, but they do object to people who can afford to pay. The last thing I'll say about this is that people who pay for private education are saving the state money. They are freeing up places, and that's always forgotten.
OK, Andy, finally, the fact that Labour and Keir Starmer aren't exactly popular in countryside areas at the moment. I mean, who'd have thunk it, given the farming tax? But we have many new Labour MPs who are in those constituencies now and are worried about the direction of travel on this.
Yeah, absolutely, Dawn. There's loads of anxiety within the Labour Party right now. They won this huge mandate, didn't they? But it's a very brittle mandate because they got very few votes, you know, sort of Jeremy Corbyn level of votes, but a huge aberration in a lot of seats. And those in small majority seats, the new Labour MPs are very anxious. They're starting to turn on Keir Starmer, and that's going to get worse and worse. Rural people feel overlooked and misunderstood. They see Labour as the party of I'll use the phrase, metropolitan elite. And the latest opinion polls suggest that if the current level of support continues up to the next election, Labour will be retreating into the London metropolitan areas and be banished from the countryside. I'm seeing a lot of kickback against Labour in the rural constituency I live in.
And it's not just Labour backbenchers who appear to be turning on Keir Starmer. We're even having local councillors. A Dudley councillor, Steve Edwards, has written a public letter absolutely scathing Starmer following a by-election results there, saying he has lied to all of us to get elected. He does not deserve to be leader of the Labour Party. He's attacked the working class, our children, parents, grandparents. It's unjustifiable.
Absolutely, Cameron. Expect to see more of this as the opinion polls fall and stay low. Politicians become self-serving and looking after their own interests, and they turn on each other. So people will turn on Keir Starmer, just as they did on Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson before him when they're worried about their seats. I have to say, this is only one councillor, and councillors can be rogue and a bit nutty, I'm afraid. But it is significant, and it does show what is absolutely going to happen. A theme of this year will be Labour politicians turning on Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves.
Interesting. Thank you. That is Andy Preston, former Mayor of Middlesbrough. Thank you very much for joining us, Andy. It's just another good news for... It might feel like we're constantly attacking Labour this morning, but if you pick up any of your Sunday newspapers, and there isn't a single one, even the left-leaning newspapers, that are coming out full of praise for Labour at the moment.
I'm sure the Labour government would argue that they are trying to invest in public services by raising taxes, and in the long run, it will make people's lives better. I suppose we'll have to wait and see.
They're making all the difficult decisions first.
Exactly.
So
Well, they've
hit
got a
the ground
mandate.
running.
Yeah, 4.5 years potentially until the next election. So let's see if we're still talking about the same thing in a few years' time.
Should we go somewhere else where it makes our politics look vaguely sane?
Yes, to the US.
Yeah, why not? US President-elect Donald Trump is asking the Supreme Court to pause taking action on social media app TikTok.
Yes, he wants the country's highest court to let him pursue a political resolution, in his words, and hold off on banning or forcing the sale of the Chinese company until he takes office.
Joining us now is Chairman of Republicans Overseas, Greg Swenson. Greg, thank you very much for joining us. Hope you had a lovely Christmas. Happy New Year when it comes. What's this story about?
Well, there's a lot of conflict right now between those rather valid concerns about TikTok being owned by a Chinese company and the fact that the Chinese Communist Party has access to data, especially access to data, but also influence on especially on young people that use TikTok. So, there is a valid concern there. But on the other hand, there's also a lot of sensitivity right now in the U.S. about censorship because we've seen so much of it from the big tech, from the mainstream media companies in the U.S. So, we have to be careful to not overdo this concern with the Chinese and then run into censorship issues. So that's what he's trying to address here.
During the U.S. presidential election campaign, President Trump appeared to use TikTok quite successfully, particularly amongst younger male voters. Do you think that has influenced his decision?
I would think so. I mean, it's natural, and both parties used it, rather aggressively, and basically Kamala Harris's campaign was dependent on TikTok in many respects because the 35-second hits that allowed her to not really have to say anything, which was kind of her main theme, was just have a re-imaging process, which can be done in these 30-second clips. But President Trump ended up embracing the same model, and that's one of the reasons he did so well with young voters.
And we're seeing similar over here, sort of like, Nigel Farage and Reform using social media and TikTok to get those young voters on board.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just required in politics now. And the first one that really embraced it, social media in general, was President Obama 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think that Republicans have learned from that.
CNN is reporting that President-elect Trump, I should say, has spoken to the chief executive of TikTok following him asking the US Supreme Court. Why do you think there appears to be quite a close relationship, at least on talking terms, with the chief exec of TikTok, a Chinese-owned company?
Yeah, I think that's the way President Trump operates. He's a businessman first, and this is not a traditional politician. And so, I'm very optimistic that he'll get to some really positive resolution here, and that's just the way he operates.
Because Trump does have form with talking to people that other politicians think we shouldn't be talking to.
Right.
Putin in North Korea, for example. Now, what do you make of Putin's near apology for the plane disaster in Azerbaijan? I mean, he said kind of it was our fault, but not accepted responsibility for it. Trump's going to be in power very, very soon. How's he going to handle this situation?
I think President Trump is happy to call out Putin on any number of things. And if you recall, even though, there is some merit to the, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, and President Trump does a really good job of that. But on the other hand, he was very, at times very critical of Putin, but also in his actions. If you look at what he did, he's, after 8 years of Obama-Biden sending blankets and other non-lethal weapons or non-lethal supplies to Ukraine, President Trump, started sending Javelin missiles and other lethal equipment. Biden and Obama were sending the equipment to, a U.S. airbase in Poland and trucking it in commercial non-flagged trucks to Kyiv. Trump went in and sent Javelins directly to Kyiv and U.S. transport. So, he's been much more aggressive on Putin than either Obama or Biden, and you could see the outcomes. This is why, Putin did his invasions while someone other than Trump was in office.
Putin is saying that Russia is using these anti-air defense missiles to take out Ukrainian drones. Of course, the UK Foreign Office is saying it's reckless to use these anti-aircraft missiles where there's commercial planes operating.
Of course.
How do you think Trump is going to handle this whole situation in Ukraine? Because he's claims in the past he can end the war in 24 hours, which seems pretty unlikely.
Yeah, that's perhaps aggressive, but again, he's optimistic, and I think anything's better than what we have. And the incrementalism of the Biden years has shown, to be very ineffective. Starting with, okay, we'll send you some supplies, but not really what you want, not F-16s, not Abrams tanks, and then ultimately, compromising as time goes on. But it's been very incrementalist, and I think President Trump will insist on some kind of change, some kind of action. The real unpredictable is Putin, right? So even though President Trump uses unpredictability to his advantage, I think we have to really be worried about what Putin does, because nobody really knows.
Just quickly and finally, Greg, the special relationship between our two countries. We have Peter Mandelson now as our envoy talking to Trump, but Trump's relationship with Nigel Farage is on very good terms.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So do you think he would rather be talking to Nigel Farage than Peter Mandelson?
Well, I think, obviously, I think he would rather talk to Nigel Farage for sure, and that's a really great relationship that they have, and I think Mendelsohn and Keir Starmer would be, should take advantage of that relationship that they have. So I think Trump will be just fine with the UK. As you know, he's a big fan of this country, and I think you'll see that regardless of who's in office.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Greg Swenson. Thank you very much for joining us. And Happy New Year to you. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Yes, indeed. Is it premature to say Happy New Year yet?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Couple more days. Anyway, shall we take a check on the weather to see what New Year is having in store for us?
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, the weather is certainly set to change. We lose the mist and fog, but it's certainly turning much wetter and windier for most of us. Back to here and now, we still have some mist and murk around first thing this morning, especially across England and Wales. But I'm hopeful as the day goes on, this will start to break up more readily than it has done of late. So some afternoon sunshine for parts of England and Wales. Northern Ireland having a relatively dry day, but rather cloudy. But Scotland seeing plenty of wet weather, especially for Western Scotland, with some heavy and persistent rain here. With more in the way of brightness around, certainly a milder day. You could see highs reaching 10 to 11 degrees. So we see Sunday afternoon out on a fairly quiet note across many southern parts. Some late sunshine giving away to some clear spells overnight. Northern Ireland and much of northern England relatively dry apart from the odd spot of rain, where the main bulk of the rain really is going to be across Scotland, where some cold air beginning to tap in too, so we could see that rain turn increasingly to snow, especially across the higher ground. And really, if anything, as we go through the course of the night, that rain just intensifies across parts of Scotland. A very wet start to the early hours of Monday morning. Again, some snow across the higher ground. Warnings are in force right throughout Monday, and they will continue into New Year's Eve as well. So if you do have any travel plans across Scotland, do be aware and stay alert to the latest warnings. Further south, a relatively quiet start to Monday. Some sunshine around, especially across the far south, but again, a fair bit of cloud around. Maybe just the odd shower across the far south, but again, most of the rain will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland later on, with potentially some rain just also arriving into northern England. Mild for most of us, with the exception of the far north, where it will start to turn increasingly cold.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, we could make your new year very special indeed, because if you've got it on your Christmas list, we could be about to give away, well, we are giving away £50,000 in tax-free cash for the new year.
Yeah, and it could all be yours. It's our biggest ever British giveaway, and here's how you can win it.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Oh, good luck indeed. What a brilliant new year that would give you. And you could spend it on some new gym equipment, couldn't you? Because how are you planning to get fit for the new year? Finally signing up to a local gym or making use of the one you already got but haven't actually used? That's next. This is GB News with Fitness Freak here, Cameron, and me, Dawn.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, it's interesting because I haven't actually been told specifically what I've done, which has resulted in me being removed from my committee position, which was head of daytime. I started a podcast in September in which I interviewed Charlie Bentley-Astor, who's a detransitioner. I then also interviewed Graham Linehan, and I wrote an article for his Substack. And shortly after that, I was told that I had been suspended, and the university union started an investigation into me, and that very quickly became apparent to me that it was an interrogation of my gender-critical views rather than any sort of misconduct that I had been alleged to.
Right. And Graham Linehan has been outspoken on issues relating to transgender ism, whatever you want to call it, gender ideology. And so perhaps just by having associated yourself with him as a controversial figure, that was why the investigation happened, you suspect?
Yes, and already it's quite clear that guilt by association is a crime that you can commit within university societies. I actually purchased my free speech union membership way before this all happened, when a friend helped me edit the episode with Charlie, and he got in trouble with a separate society who told him that he must disassociate himself from me, and if he didn't, further measures would be taken. So at that point, I thought, wow, I better put some damage control in place and purchase my membership in case anything happens to me.
So this decision is made by the student union, right? Is that made up of fellow students? Or who's making this call?
Well, that's actually part of my appeal. So the process has been completely improper. They haven't followed their own guidelines. There are two different guidelines as to whether a complaint is dealt with the society itself, so Leeds Student Radio, or the union, and it's basically been a mishmash of both. So it's been an improper procedure, but it is, as far as I'm aware, it's the student union who's decided to remove me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to GB News Breakfast with Cameron and Dawn.
Yes, now 25. It's Sunday, the 29th of December. I'm reminding myself of that as well as you, by the way, because I'm clueless what day it is. But 2025 is just around the corner. And, well, our New Year's resolution is going to be to get fit. I think 38% of us are saying that we want to actually get fit.
Yeah, I can imagine all the gyms are going to be packed come January, but we are going to help you now get started in weight loss with a weight loss and lifestyle coach, and Archie. And thank you very much for joining us. Good morning to you. It feels like a good excuse this time of year, doesn't it, to start afresh, get fit, get physical. But how do people stay motivated so they don't tail off end of January?
Good morning. That's a very good question. And you're right, everyone wakes up on January 1st and say, this year I'm going to do it. And as you just said, you know, the gyms are busy to start with, and then it tapers off. Most people actually stop their New Year's resolution by the 3rd week of January. And the whole thing is, you know, really think about not just what you want to achieve, but how you're going to do it. And be sensible, be realistic as well. I don't know, but if you've never been to the gym every day, there's no way that suddenly you're going to start doing it. So you really would like to think of, what can I realistically fit into my lifestyle, and what can I keep going with as well?
This is the situation, isn't it? And I find, you know, certainly going into the new year, everyone sets themselves these amazing, like, I'm going to learn a foreign language in a month. I'm going to run a marathon by the beginning of February. But if you set yourself bite-sized chunks of things to do, then you're more likely to stick to it.
Definitely. And also the most important thing is find something you enjoy doing. I've never really been a gym bunny myself. But I do love to go for long walks. So I, you know, find some friends and I go for long walks, be it in the country or just around the block. I do like swimming. So, you know, swimming is something that I love doing. So I go regularly as well. So really find something you enjoy doing. The gym is great, but it's not for everyone.
That's the thing, Anne. I suppose that you think of weight loss, you think of trying to get fit, and you do have images of the gym in your head, doing a very quick 5K on a treadmill, followed by, you know, loads and loads of weights and things like that. But just a simple walk, you know, around the block, or doing your 10,000 steps a day can be enough to get you kind of started.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you've not done anything for a long, long time. If you go to the gym, have this massive workout, you're going to have so much muscle aches the next day. And that's going to put you off from going for a few days. So, and then you go again, and it's that, you know, repetitive thing that happens. And eventually you stop going because it's just too painful.
And can you give us some advice for things that people can do at home? I mean, many people can't afford to join a gym, full stop. So, I mean, you know, just keeping fit around the house, what tips you can offer there?
For me, every time you make your cup of coffee in the morning, or do it throughout the day, or wherever, do 10 squats while the kettle is boiling, a few press-ups against the countertop. Every time you go and sit on a chair, stand up and go and sit 10 times, go up and down the stairs 5 times. There's so many things that you can do at home as well.
Okay, and how important is it to combine diet and exercise? I'm not talking about diet counting calories, but changing your eating habits to make them healthier.
Massively. You know, the gym, as they say, is about 20%. What you eat is about 80% of getting fit and healthy. Now, obviously, most of us think of, okay, I'm going to cut out all the sugar and everything we have eaten, especially throughout the holidays. Don't think that way. Think about what you can add to your diet. What are the things that you actually don't eat enough of? Is it not enough vegetables? Is it not enough protein? Those kind of stuff, just add as opposed to take out, because when you add stuff that you might not eat enough of, automatically the other stuff is dropped or you know, you eat less of, only because you don't need them anymore because you eat better.
And just briefly, how does lifestyle change and weight loss affect your mental health?
You feel so much better within. First of all, you sleep better. You have more energy. So all in all, you feel better about yourself as well. So it is really, really important. I mean, we all know that when we go for a walk and come back home, we feel happy. We feel better. We all know that when we haven't had as much sugar, we sleep better, we have more energy long term, because obviously short term you have that burst, but afterwards you feel even worse. So yeah, it makes you feel much, much better as well. So especially in the winter months, when the sun is not really shining, this is really important as well.
Okay, weight loss and lifestyle coach Anne Ayarchi, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to start now, as I intend to go on. I know it's not the need. I'm going to walk to football this afternoon.
Should we start doing the up and down as well?
Yeah, so doing some squats. I'm not doing that. I've got not in these hills. OK, but still to come, the latest on the World Darts Championship at the Ali Pali and more. Oh, God. Liverpool, West Ham are playing this afternoon, evidently. I warned people not to mention it.
I'm
Chelsea
excited.
Fans, cold
Yes.
spreader. Any case, that's next. This is GB News with Cameron and Dawn. Your fault.
My fault.
Use them spots.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
So, how did you get into radio initially?
It's the old thing. You do discos.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you used to put needles on.
What sort of year we're talking about?
Oh, it was black and white.
Okay.
That's the closest you're going to get.
Beatles, Rolling Stones?
Yeah. Sort of later. Sort of a bit later than that, doing discos. But then you sort of do a tape. I did a tape for BBC Radio Manchester, the local BBC station. And just one off, got a copy of that, edit. Yeah. Naively thought, everybody's going to send a tape to Piccadilly, which was the Manchester station, which was 73. And instead of that, a couple of years later, I sent a tape to Radio City in Liverpool, not thinking that everybody in Liverpool's going to be sending a tape there. And just a guy just went, I'm too good for this, doing the overnights, walked out, and my tape was on the top of the pile. And I got a phone call on a Thursday night, Thursday, the 12th of February, 76. Can you do 2 till 6 in the morning on Radio City in Liverpool? I thought it was one of my pals.
And what was you talking about on that radio show?
It was an overnight programme, so it's music.
Yeah.
In those days, you didn't have much needle time, but clever devil here noticed that the BBC stuff was not needle time. Yeah. So I used to put like the Goons on and the Hancocks. So you've got half an hour and me and the security guy, Bert, on the door. We're the only two in the building. Yeah. I used to get in my car, put the Goons on, get in my car, dash down to the pier head, get a bacon butty, listening to it all the time, hoping that the record's not stuck, and then dashing back.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The time's 7:36. Now, Justin's been in touch. He says, I go to the gym at least 6 times a week because, wait for it, it's got the best chocolate and crisps vending machine in town. Very good.
No pressure, people. No pressure. Lots of you been getting in touch. It's like, we're busy. It's expensive to go to the gym, but just going for a walk. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, you don't need
to. Yeah. And I'm actually I'm going to mention it before anyone else does. I'm actually going to walk to Husband via several pubs. Walk to our football this afternoon because West Ham are playing Liverpool, aren't they, Aidan McGee?
They are indeed. They're 5:15, isn't it?
Yes.
At the London Stadium. Well, look, I mean, their goalkeeper, Liverpool, this is Alisson. He's been out for a period of time with injuries, been very capably deputised by the Irish international Caoimhín Kelleher, but he has forced his way back into the side. And he's not just talking about winning the Premier League title this year, Cameron. He's been a bit greedy. He's not even talking about the treble, which has been achieved before by Man United and Manchester City, two of their great rivals. He thinks they can do the quad, all four: Premier League, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Champions League. Never been done before by an English club. Now, it's interesting because Arne Slot took over in the summer. I just assumed that with Jurgen Klopp having been there for 9 years and had this exceptional levels of success and how rambunctious and how entertaining the side was, I thought there'd be a drop-off. I thought it'd take a year or two just to reacclimatise to a new manager. In fact, I wasn't even sure that the new guy would get that long. He'd been in Holland. There's not a great tradition of Dutch players and managers coming to this country and performing particularly well.
Unless they're women.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true. That is true. Serena Wigman, of course. But Liverpool are known because his name's Arne Slot, and they're known as the slot machine now. Now exactly a machine, but they've got problems coming up because what are you laughing at?
Just.
You'd have loved that if you read this in the Daily Star today. And I cut that in the 10 o'clock meeting. You'd have loved that. But 3 players are out of contract. Next, at the end of the season, key players as well. Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and they're free to negotiate with foreign clubs as per the rules next month. So they have problems ahead, but yeah, 6 points ahead at the moment and a game in hand.
And what's going on with the tennis?
Well, look, this is Nick Kyrgios, who is one of the bad boys of tennis. He's exceptionally talented, but didn't really back it up with titles. He's still playing, he's still on the circuit, but he's had some quite choice words for the 2 world number ones in the female section and the male section, Yannick Sinner and Iga Swiatek. Both failed doping tests earlier this year. It's not a good look for tennis at all, as he references now. Let's listen to what he had to say.
It's been handled horrifically in our sport, and 2 world number ones both getting done for doping is disgusting for our sport. It's a horrible look. And yeah, the tennis integrity right now, and everyone knows it, but no one wants to speak about it. It's awful. Like, it's actually awful. And it's not okay, so
that's Nick Kyrgios, and the Australian Open starts next month. It's the first Grand Slam of the year, and I want to drill down into this a little bit in the time that we've got, because we discussed yesterday the effect drugs can have on other sports. We've seen big sponsorship pulling away from cycling. Team Sky ditched cycling as soon as Comcast took over in 2018 because they just associated it with Lance Armstrong. We talked about the effect on athletics, how much more famous the athletes, the UK athletes 30 years ago are compared to now, even though the current lot are more successful. If tennis wants to go down that road of tolerating dopers, it will go the same way, because they've lost Federer, they've lost Nadal, they've lost Murray, and they're going to lose Djokovic soon if they usher in a new era of players who aren't quite as celebrated, allied with the fact that they've got a doping problem. There's only one way down. I urge it to sort it. I urge them to take Nick Kyrgios' advice and sort it out quickly.
Because it is, I mean, you expect it with many sports, but not tennis. I mean, I'm sort of like quite shocked by what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, not at the very, it's been known further down the rankings, but not the 2 world number ones. Let's discuss. Well, I was going to say disgusting. That's the word that Nick Kyrgios used, and I think he's on point.
Yeah, worrying times. Aidan McGee, thank you very much. We'll see more of you later. OK, now, it's... what are we doing now? We are going... Oh, winter sun.
Winter sun.
Winter sun. I was confused by thinking about football then.
Yeah.
Happens a lot at my age. But if you are in search of some winter sun, here is a forecast for some of those top holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, it's going to remain fairly unsettled for parts of Cyprus and Greece. This area of cloud and rain continues to linger here. But for much of Italy, Spain and Portugal, a fairly quiet couple of days with some late winter sunshine here. A few showers for Madeira, maybe just creeping into Canaries. But as we approach New Year's Day itself, it should be fairly fine and dry across the Canaries.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Australian chef David Thompson is opening a new restaurant, Long Chim. The name, which translates roughly as come and try, already has locations in Sydney, Perth and Dubai, and previously operated in Melbourne and Singapore. It marks a return to London for Thompson, whose Belgravia haunt Naarm closed in 2012. But that earned him accolades, including, in 2002, the first Michelin star awarded to a Thai restaurant. So you've mentioned Bangkok there. What is your love for Thai food? Describe to us why you think Thai food is such a great cuisine.
It's endlessly complex and satisfying. It just resonates on the palate. For me, as a cook, it offers a challenge, and the way that you cook it is you chase taste. You don't follow a recipe, you follow your sense of taste. And so with all these dishes that you'll taste today, but also in the restaurant that we're opening, it's all about a sequence of taste and seasoning that has some balance.
What is this dish?
This is something called gengari gung, which is an aromatic curry of prawns.
Lovely looking prawns, yes.
They're not too bad. And it's with something strange called water bamboo, which we found up in Chinatown just the other day. And it's a perfect accompaniment. I'll just take a little.
Yes. Describe that perfect accompaniment to me again. Water
bamboo.
What is it? Water bamboo, yeah.
And you would not know of it, because I didn't know of it that much either. And it tastes like a little bit of like young coconut meat. So it's perfect with these prawns and this curry. And what you need to have with this curry, because this is the way that Thai food works, an interplay of flavours. This little cucumber salad on the side, and that helps to bring out the spice and the sweetness and the savoury quality.
I must say, all of this looks so lovely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is GB News with Cameron and Dawn. I just want to read one message out. Please do keep getting in touch, by the way. This is from ILJ. I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly. Love you, Dawn, but for God's sake, stop yapping.
Oh.
I mean, she's kind of employed to talk, though. It's kind of difficult. Sorry.
No, I'm stopping now. Over to you. Go on.
Over to me. Hello. We want you back, Dawn, I'm afraid. But we do have two other people in the studio here, Lynn May and Kane Blackwell, who will be going through all the latest headlines. So let's start, Lynn, with Trump wants to make America great again. What's going on here?
So there was a massive flurry online yesterday in response to Trump siding with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy with regards to immigration. Now, I think many people, and the same can be said for here in Britain, many people probably voted for Trump ignorantly, thinking he was going to shut down all immigration. But similar to here, it's about illegal immigration or low-skilled workers. He's a businessman, so is Elon Musk, and their view is whatever makes America great again is what we'll do. And that means inviting skilled workers into the States to be able to work on those things, such as those industries, engineering, technology. And what Vivek said was actually quite interesting. He was saying that in America, the culture has not supported praising those in tech or skilled workers. It's been the culture of the prom queen as opposed to the studious academic person. So because that's the case, if we look at China, if we look at India, they're miles ahead of the West now. And that's because you're having these young people that are really studious, really academic. They're not on podcasts talking crap about relationships.
We'd just like to apologise for anyone that's upset by the language there.
So, crap, apologies.
Sorry, don't say it twice, then.
Don't say it twice.
So, I understand where Trump is coming from and where Elon's coming from. And if America does not have the skilled workers in tech and in engineering, why would you not go further afield? And loads of people, MAGA people, are so frustrated. They're saying, you know, are you trying to disrespect the locals, the Americans? What's wrong with us? Well, if you had the credentials and the ability, then maybe that wouldn't be an issue. But unfortunately, in the West, skilled workers are not a thing anymore.
Well, Kane, one of the arguments of Brexit was that we could recruits people from all over the world with the skills that Britain needs to do something similar to America to make Britain great again. That seems to not
exactly. And
materialised.
now we have a points-based immigration system, and the point is, you know, the Home Office, the Home Secretary of the day, is able to change the sort of purview of who can come in and who can't. So, you know, we do have that opportunity to do it now. It's up to government, it's up to us to actually make it work for ourselves. But I think this is a really interesting situation in America, and it's actually quite similar to something that happened here in 2012. So back in 2012, Kwasi Kwarteng, Priti Patel, Dominic Raab, Chris Skidmore and Liz Truss wrote a book called Britannia Unchanged, and it was quite controversial at the time because they were talking about, you know, really ripping up the state and really changing things around, particularly in business and the economy. And there was a line in the book that said, you know, something along the lines of what Vivek has said. You know, it's about culture. You know, British workers aren't quite there and stuff like that. And they were, you know, absolutely venerated for it. And this is an issue. And, you know, Vivek wrote on social media, you know, we have to be honest about these hard conversations.
Yep.
You know, you have to have, you know, difficult conversations if you actually want to move things forward. And it's the same in this country as well.
And it frustrates me, even with low-skilled workers. Many people say, you know, immigration, which I completely agree, we have to control immigration. However, I don't see many young English individuals on a delivery bike. Do you?
No,
like,
that's
these are
true.
the jobs they don't want to do, we don't want to do as Brits. Well, so we're going to have to accept some immigration.
Well, we do have over 1 million job vacancies, I think, in this country at the moment, don't we? But it's evidently the busiest few days for booking holidays at the moment and escaping the UK. So you've got two flight stories here, both from the Daily Mail. Kane, let's do the air passenger duty one first. We're going to be paying more to escape.
We are going to be paying a lot more to escape the country, to go on holiday. And, you know, it is totally unfair. And it's sort of a net zero push. It's sort of one of these environment taxes that is put onto air companies and planes and people like that. And actually, what actually happens is put on the consumer. The consumer pays this tax, not the company.
This is the air passenger duty, which has gone up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is going up by £400. So the Taxpayers Alliance have actually done some research on this, and for a family of four going to Disneyland, Florida, they will be taxed £424 to go, £106 per person. It's absolutely mad. People don't have the money for this, you know. And Rachel Reeves is saying, oh, well, it hasn't gone up with inflation and all of this sort of stuff. Well, by the time this tax takes effect, inflation will have risen to 111% since the time this tax was introduced. However, this tax will have actually increased by 200% for short-haul flights and 920 for long-haul flights. So it doesn't make any sense. And again, it's just another way that Labour are going to do these stealth taxes on people to raise money. They say they're not going to tax working people. They're going to tax working people. They are taxing working people. They're just not doing it as blatantly as they said they were going to.
I'm not mad at this one, though. I'm sorry. I'm not mad at it. Yes, I don't want to pay more to have to go on holiday. I love to go on holiday. But the reality is, it's not a necessity, it's a luxury, and I want to see more people spending maybe summer here, putting the pound in our economy as opposed to taking it to places like Florida. And I think we need it. We need growth. The only way that that's going to happen is if we spend a lot of money here. And like I said, it's not things like, you know, winter fuel. It's not like food, things that are necessities. Going to Disneyland, of course, we all want to do that. But again, if they can raise some taxes with things that are not a requirement and a necessity, I'm not mad at it.
It would help if we had guaranteed good weather in the United Kingdom, perhaps.
Yeah.
But earlier on, we were talking about getting fit for the new year. And it appears that there's a bit of an outcry as to some passengers potentially being weighed for flights.
I'm all for this, yes. So...
I'm just breathing in.
Start doing these press-ups now. Yeah.
So, the Daily Mail, outcry over moves to weigh passengers on flights, and 60% of Britain are saying that this is unfair. OK, well, life isn't fair. Let's just get that out there. But the thing is, we've got an obesity crisis. Yes, it may be a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit embarrassing. But if we look at weight, if somebody is a bit more rotund or a little bit larger, you know, and I'm not as large, I want to be able to have heavier luggage to compensate for that. Why should I have to have smaller luggage and I don't weigh that much? So I think this is about, you know, the weight of the plane, the luggage, but also it can bring to people's awareness you have gone up a couple of dress sizes. Let's rein it in. We're entering January. Get in the gym. If you don't have the money to get in the gym, go for a half-an-hour walk every morning.
Kane doesn't look like he's going to be booking a Lin May flight anytime soon.
I hope not. Anyway, I won't get on the bloody plane.
How's your dress size, love? Has it gone up?
Well, I mean, over Christmas, it might have expanded a little bit more.
Or trouser size.
Exactly. No, but I mean, look, I sort of see both sides to this. I really do, you know. Like Lynn says, we do have an obesity crisis in the UK. We do all need to get fitter, including me here. But, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, if it is a safety concern, a genuine safety concern, then we should look at it. But if this is, you know, for, I think, more of a, you know, a health reason, then actually people, I think companies and governments should get out of people's lives and people should be left to do what they want.
Well, maybe it's like, if you want to take excess baggage, maybe you should pay more if you weigh more.
Yes, that's another thing. I'm not against it. Absolutely. One of the biggest strains on the NHS is obesity-related illness. Yeah. So we do have to look at that. And there's this whole idea of making everyone in society feel comfortable about everything. We need to bring shame back. I know it doesn't sound nice, but if you speak to a lot of people that have lost a lot of weight and now they're healthy, feeling great, it's because they had a level of embarrassment and they're happy for it.
It's true.
We know this whole, you know, models that are plus size, like mannequins. Oh, get rid of those. It is not healthy. It's not right to be obese. A little bit of weight, nothing wrong with that, but we're talking obesity here, so I see nothing wrong with these things.
It can be quite difficult when in your local housing estate there's a fish and chip shop, a Chinese takeaway, cheap, unhealthy foods, where the healthy alternatives are so expensive.
That is true. I would like to see a lot more, maybe, you know, faster food options, but are healthier. It can be done instead of chicken shops in, as you said, more poorer areas. But, you know, let's build up our resilience to say no. Let's learn to say no.
Lynn and Kane, you can jog out the studios now to keep fit. But we'll see you in the next hour. We have to get the weather, and here it is with Craig Snell.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, the weather is certainly set to change. We lose the mist and fog, but it's certainly turning much wetter and windier for most of us. Back to here and now, we still have some mist and murk around first thing this morning, especially across England and Wales. But I'm hopeful as the day goes on, this will start to break up more readily than it has done of late. So some afternoon sunshine for parts of England and Wales. Northern Ireland having a relatively dry day, but rather cloudy. But Scotland seeing plenty of wet weather, especially for Western Scotland, with some heavy and persistent rain here. With more in the way of brightness around, certainly a milder day. You could see highs reaching 10 to 11 degrees. So we see Sunday afternoon out on a fairly quiet note across many southern parts. Some late sunshine giving way to some clear spells overnight. Northern Ireland and much of northern England relatively dry apart from the odd spot of rain, where the main bulk of the rain really is going to be across Scotland, where some cold air beginning to tap in too, so we could see that rain turn increasingly to snow, especially across the higher ground. And really, if anything, as we go through the course of the night, that rain just intensifies across parts of Scotland. A very wet start to the early hours of Monday morning. Again, some snow across the higher ground. Warnings are in force right throughout Monday, and they will continue into New Year's Eve as well. So if you do have any travel plans across Scotland, do be aware and stay alert to the latest warnings. Further south, a relatively quiet start to Monday. Some sunshine around, especially across the far south, but again, a fair bit of cloud around. Maybe just the odd shower across the far south, but again, most of the rain will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland later on, with potentially some rain just also arriving into northern England. Mild for most of us, with the exception of the far north, where it will start to turn increasingly cold.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever. an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes, the bane of everybody that uses a road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. The Education Secretary claims middle classes will support the VAT introduction on private schools.
Bridget Phillipson has said pushy parents will demand more from the state schooling system after being priced out by rising fees.
But many are heavily criticising the move, saying it will put the pressure on the state school sector.
The Prime Minister's approval ratings are branded catastrophic with rural voters in a new poll following the planned tax raid on farmers.
And at least 127 people have been killed after a passenger jet carrying 181 passengers crashed in South Korea. That's according to the National Fire Agency.
President-elect Donald Trump has asked the US Supreme Court to delay an upcoming TikTok ban while he works on what he calls a political resolution.
And New Year, New You, the top New Year resolution is to get fit, with 38% of us setting a target. We'll be finding out the tips to achieve your goals.
Morning teenage sensation Luke Littler moves into the fourth round of the PDC World Darts Championships at the Ali Pali, despite not being at his best. And Liverpool goalkeeper Alisson has urged his teammates to go ahead and make history. The Premier League leaders are in action today at West Ham.
Good morning. It's all changed as we see out 2024. We say goodbye to the Mr. Merc, but it's replaced by some wet and windy weather. Find out all the details coming up a little later on.
Yes, so Liverpool making history. Just not tonight, boys, all right? Yes, just not tonight, OK? If you're wondering what we're talking about, we are talking football, because it's a big, big, big sporting day. And obviously the amazing Liverpool are playing the not-so-amazing West Ham this afternoon, and I'm going straight there after the game. But I am walking. I'm getting my fitness in, my steps in as well.
10,000 steps worth?
Well, I don't know. How many... 10,000 steps in miles, what's that?
Oh, no idea.
Let me
Unsure.
work it out. I reckon that's probably about 4.5 miles.
OK, I'll be about right then.
And what kind of food is being served at the stadium? Is it all going to be salads and quinoa?
Yeah,
It's really overpriced there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really overpriced. So we have 12-inch long sausages.
Hey!
It's a thing. It
Very
really
nice.
is a thing. They are 12-inch. Well, evidently they're 12 inches. I mean,
You pay for it?
Pardon?
Sorry, yeah.
I don't do 12-inch sausages. No, I don't. Have you ever? No, they're embarrassing to eat for a start.
Well, no, you
Ketchup
do.
and
You cut
mustard
it in
as
half.
well.
Yeah, those squirts all over the place.
Go everywhere. I'm sure there's burgers and chips and other things on offer as well.
Other games are available.
Yes, we'll bring it back
you
to
get
earth.
sushi at Chelsea, by the way.
Sushi. Well, it is in Chelsea, isn't it? So you'd expect
Well,
that.
I mean, there's loads. Most of these grounds have eateries around the place. I mean, if you weren't that worried about price, go and eat
Apart
outside.
from QPR, what have you got?
Well, Shepherd's Bush, magnificent, absolutely magnificent. Seriously. For lots of different cuisines.
But are you allowed to take beer into the stands now?
You can not in the stands. It can't be within view of the pitch.
No. Right.
So I've been in corporate hospitality before, and they pull these like blinds down just before kick-off. If you want to stay indoors and eat and drink your booze, and people who aren't used to football, because you get a lot of those people in those kind of areas of the ground, they get really confused as to what happens because it doesn't happen in any other sport.
No. If you're in the cheap seats, you might just be able to get a small bottle of wine in your bag. I've never done that, obviously.
What's been known to happen is that when they provide tea and coffee, they might, a server just might push.
And flasks are allowed in as well. A nice flask of mulled wine at this time of year because it's cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, we're not advertising that.
No, because we're all getting fit and healthy for the new year because we're going to need to be fit and healthy because there's another tax raid coming. Yeah, middle-class families are set to be hit with £8,000 tax bills in 2025.
Yes, it comes as the Chancellor yesterday announced a funding boost of £1.7 billion for state schools, whilst a VAT of 20% will be applied to private school fees from the 1st of January. And here is what the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, had to say.
I recognise that a lot of parents work hard to be able to send their children to private schools, but all parents are aspirational for their children, including the 94% of children who are in our state schools. And so by getting rid of the tax exemptions that exist before for private schools, we're able to invest £1.7 billion of money into our state schools so that they can recruit and retain the very best teachers so that all children can get a great start in life.
Gosh. Right. Elsewhere, new polling by The Telegraph suggests just 1 in 5 believe Labour cares about people who live in and work in the countryside, with reports that Keir Starmer has been warned his ratings have suffered a catastrophic fall amongst countryside voters because of the family farm tax anger.
Who would have seen that one coming? We're joined by former Mayor of Middlesbrough, Andy Preston. Andy, thank you for joining us this morning. Not good news for Labour in any of the papers again, and we're all going to be worse off than we are even now in the new year.
Morning, Dawn. Morning, Cameron. Morning, everyone. Yes, that's right. Lots of bad news for Labour across the papers, isn't it? It's not just the traditional Tory papers. Though I have to say the Telegraph have come out again with this story about the tax raid. To me, the tax raid story is a bringing together of old news. It's an attempt to portray Rachel Reeves as the devil. I'm not here to defend Rachel Reeves, and I am frequently very critical of her. But one thing that the Telegraph have done very, very well is they've articulated that the taxes that are coming in, that we all knew about, these taxes that are coming in, amount to the biggest transfer of money from people's private pockets into the state sector, into quangos, government departments, and pay rises for public sector workers. That's the big story to me, and people should rightly be concerned about this.
Because, I mean, wasn't there a story around during the week that Labour, who wanted to cut through all the red tape and cut down on the civil service, have introduced a quango every week they've been in power so far?
That's exactly right. Labour seem to absolutely love bureaucracy. They seem to love hiring new people and getting things moving that way. They are naturally big believers in the public sector. That's Labour's history, and that's left of centre's ideology. So we shouldn't be too surprised, despite what they say. Right now, in my opinion, what we have to do is absolutely shrink the public sector, not because we don't like it, not because we don't value their work, but we are so stretched for cash And with zero economic growth on the horizon, things are going to get tighter. And the alternatives are going to be either tax rises or shrink the public sector. Tax rises will, in my opinion, hobble the economy even more. And we're going to have to close the public sector down in some ways and shrink it in the future. Might as well do it now and get it over and done with.
Andy, Labour would argue that investment in the public sector will improve public services and improve people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the idea, isn't it? And do you know what? I personally believe that you can do that, but you can only do that when money is abundant and times are good. And if we think back, those of us who are old enough, to the mid-90s, there was a global economic boom. Labour swept to power under Tony Blair, and there was loads of money coming into the government. They actually put taxes down and got more money, and there was a booming economy. And they used that to fund lots of great stuff. I'm not saying they were totally efficient, but they funded some great stuff. And that's what you can do when your economy is growing. When your economy is shrinking or stagnating, you have to shrink the private sector and keep taxes as low as possible. And we're in a very different environment now. Keir Starmer and Labour seem to want to grow the public sector. That's going to choke the economy and only basically kick the can down the road. And inevitably, there will have to be cuts to public spending.
Andy, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson, 20% VAT on private schools comes in on the 1st of January. Now, only 94%, 6% of children go to private school in this country. So surely most ordinary kids are going to benefit from this.
That's the theory, isn't it, Dawn? The theory is that if you tax those in private education who presumably are better off on average, then when you push that money to the state sector, that's good for the majority. In practice, though, what obviously happens is lots of kids leave because there are lots of people who can just about afford those fees. Those kids are pulled out of the private sector into the state sector. The private sector, I'm not saying it's all good, but one of the great things about it is the state isn't paying for those kids to go to school. In theory, we want more kids in the private sector, don't we? Because it frees up more places and more resources for the kids in the state sector. The other thing I'll say about the state sector is there are fantastic schools and awful schools. And I guarantee you that all of the MPs who voted for Rachel Reeves's budget, who wanted to tax the private sector, their kids go to brilliant state schools where it's really hard to get into.
Andy, if you were a fly on the wall in Chancellor Rachel Reeves' office in number 11 Downing Street, what do you think she'll be making of this stagnating growth in this country following her budget? Do you think she would be surprised, or do you think this is her long game and she's secretly thinking it's going to get better?
I think a spy in Rachel Reeves's office would see her. Well, you two were talking earlier about perhaps sneaking a little nip of something strong into your coffee to help you get through tough times. I think Rachel Reeves might be inclined to do that. I think that she is nervous, anxious, and I think Labour hierarchy is terrified. Their whole message was about economic growth, in the same way that Liz Truss's rightly was. Both of them are right. We need economic growth to fund public services. But the growth isn't coming. I will bet £1 with anyone now who wants to gamble that we are heading into a recession if we aren't there already. That will be catastrophic because it means that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have to come back and either put taxes up in the next 18 months or drastically cut public services. One of those two things has to happen. And Rachel Reeves is in a tough place.
Rachel Reeves has promised that she's not coming back for any more taxes from us.
She said that, but that was then and this is now. They assumed that there was going to be growth. Expect them to blame the black hole and other things. Politicians never accept that they got it wrong. It's always someone else's fault. But do expect categorically for Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer to come back and either put taxes up a lot or to cut public services. And of course, being left of centre, they'll be hugely disinclined to cut public services.
Because, Andy, people in this country are so frustrated because they had 14 years of potential distrust in politics under the Conservatives. So now it appears Labour is doing exactly the same thing. It is damaging trust. It's not telling people the truth of what they're going to be doing.
Trust is gone. Trust is gone, isn't it, Cameron? Absolutely. We had political slapstick, didn't we, under the last government? Chaos, people moving around, getting fired, ministers turning over every few months. You know, it was absolutely catastrophic. And like many people, there were times when I publicly said, you know what, we just need a change. We need to change the government. This isn't working. well, what's happened is it doesn't seem to be any better. In fact, it seems worse. The beneficiaries now, because the Tories not winning that trust back yet, are they? There's no trust in Labour. There's no trust in the Tories yet. The gainers at this point seem to be reform because they're not tarnished with any of the past, and they can criticise everything that's going on without much kickback to them. So the people in a good spot right now are reform. They've got the luxury of not having been in power.
Yeah, no one can point, well, you did this before. Andy Preston, thank you very much, former Mayor of Middlesbrough, joining us to go through the political stories there for us.
Now, Russia's president tells Azerbaijan he's sorry after 38 people were killed in a plane crash in Kazakhstan.
But Vladimir Putin failed to take responsibility for the airline's crashing after it had come under fire from a Russian air defence missile.
Well, joining us now is the defence editor at The Standard, Robert Fox. Robert, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Can this be perceived as a half apology from Putin, not completely accepting responsibility?
He wasn't. By the way, I saw Dr. Strangelove with the excellent Steve Coogan. What has this got to do with Putin? Well, remember, Strangelove keeps on having the jerking arm.
Yeah.
Putin really needs a jerking arm to put his hand up completely for this one. This aircraft was shot down by a Russian air defence system by mistake. And it's the nature of the mistake and the way it was compounded that makes it so interesting and really rather appalling. Because once they knew that they had damaged the aircraft, they sent it way back across the Caspian Sea, cut. This is the really interesting thing. It's GPS guidance. Watch out, folks, because this kind of thing could be happening. They're cutting communication left and right. They've now got 4 ships under surveillance and arrest in 2 cases for cutting cables right across northern Europe. It's part of the Putin story. It is part of him showing rat-like cunning and complete incompetence at the same time.
It sounds like something out of a Soviet handbook, covering up mistakes and secrecy and what no one knows exactly what's gone on.
Yes, but what's going on is there's been a formidable information campaign, spoofing information. It would have happened on your and my social media accounts. I can see it. Some I can, now you see me, now you don't. Some I can identify, some I can't. The personal ones usually come from places like Serbia or Belarus or from Moldova. But I don't think that we've appreciated the weight of that, and it will go on, and it will get worse. And again, we're criticising the way the public administration is working under Labour. It's not just Labour. It's been very bad on this. This is going to pose the UK down the line, and not so distantly down the line, with a big security risk. Because the gamble is this, that the incoming Trump administration, which, let it be said, is far better prepared than he was in 2016. It is almost as if Donald Trump and the family really didn't expect to win in 2016. They are very well prepared. But he is the man. He does put his money where his mouth is in one respect. He believes in deals. And he is looking for 2 big deals, and they're looking more and more remote. One is over Ukraine, which is related to this. The other, of course, is the Middle East. And the trouble is that the 2 are merging now. And the point is that there is no way of getting into Russia to negotiate at the moment. This is why we're getting this little fog of information of this kind of thing, of not coming clean about, in very difficult circumstances, the downing of this aircraft. Does it mean all civil aircraft traffic in southern Russia, Caucasus area, going into the Black Sea, going into the Eastern Mediterranean even, is now under threat? It's quite possible. And this poses us with a difficulty, and it poses UK PLC, as it used to be called, with a big problem about how are we going to meet this, because we've gotten by no means sufficient funds and resources to meet this kind of thing with our allies. And you can't say it's somebody else's problem.
Well, this brings us on to defence spending very quickly. I mean, you know, Labour have not said anything about increasing money on defence spending.
Well, they've gone back on what they said.
Well,
Am I allowed to say that? Because they pledged the 2.5% of GDP.
I'm a bit vague about when they were going to do it.
This year, next year, sometime, never. And we've heard from Rachel from Accounts in saying that, oh, you know, the economy isn't there, it's flatlining. What is happening, and it's really related to what Mr. Preston was saying, exactly, the new intake really don't see defence. And I wish it wasn't called defence. I wish it was called resilience, home protection, and security, because it is vital. They don't see it as an important item. It probably didn't come up in their civics classes somewhere, because it's run by funny old men, white men in uniforms, which is absolute nonsense, because the resilience picture posed by the kinds of things that Russia is doing, yes, it's going to go grinding on in Ukraine, but we can see it doing more and more in the cyber, cable, information war. And I don't think that the new envoy appointed by Mr. Trump, General Kellogg, is going to get the peace talks that he has quite clearly been bidding for just over this weekend. He said, come on, Russia, I'm sure you can be ready for talks. There is no sign of it.
Just briefly, Robert, do you think things are going to get worse before they get better?
I think we're going to have a very rough opening quarter of the year, because I think it's conditions in Ukraine and the spillover from that are going to be pretty ghastly.
OK, indeed. Robert Fox, defence editor at The Standard, thank you very much, Robert, for joining us. Thank you.
Well, let's see if the weather is a bit more optimistic than Robert was. Then Craig has your weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, the weather is certainly set to change. We lose the mist and fog, but it's certainly turning much wetter and windier for most of us. Back to here and now, we still have some mist and murk around first thing this morning, especially across England and Wales. But I'm hopeful as the day goes on, this will start to break up more readily than it has done of late. So some afternoon sunshine for parts of England and Wales. Northern Ireland having a relatively dry day, but rather cloudy. But Scotland seeing plenty of wet weather, especially for Western Scotland, with some heavy and persistent rain here. With more in the way of brightness around, certainly a milder day. Could see highs reaching 10 to 11 degrees. So we see Sunday afternoon out on a fairly quiet note across many southern parts. Some late sunshine giving away to some clear spells overnight. Northern Ireland and much of northern England relatively dry apart from the odd spot of rain, where the main bulk of the rain really is going to be across Scotland, where some cold air beginning to tap into, so we could see that rain turn increasingly to snow, especially across the higher ground. And really, if anything, as we go through the course of the night, that rain just intensifies across parts of Scotland. A very wet start to the early hours of Monday morning. Again, some snow across the higher ground. Warnings are in force right throughout Monday, and they will continue into New Year's Eve as well. So if you do have any travel plans across Scotland, do be aware and stay alert to the latest warnings. Further south, a relatively quiet start to Monday. Some sunshine around, especially across the far south, but again, a fair bit of cloud around. Maybe just the odd shower across the far south, but again, most of the rain will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland later on, with potentially some rain just also arriving into northern England. Mild for most of us, with the exception of the far north, where it will start to turn increasingly cold.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
OK, go on. If you were a very bad elf this Christmas and you didn't get all the presents you wanted, how about we give you £50,000 in tax-free cash for the new year?
Yeah, it really could all be yours. The biggest ever Great British giveaway. Here's all the details of how you can enter.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Best of luck with that. Still to come, could 2025 see the cure to Alzheimer's disease? That's next. This is GB News Breakfast with Cameron and Dawn.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Cryptocurrency entrepreneur Justin Sun spent $6.2 million, £4.9 million on a banana, duct taped to a wall, a piece of art by artist Mauricio Catalan. Other artwork has recently caused controversy. A portrait of the British computer scientist Alan Turing by the world's first ultra-realistic robot artist, that is to say ADAR, sold at auction for almost $1.1 million. Joining me now to talk about these latest hoo-has is art critic and mentor at the University of Arts London, Estelle Lovett. I have a feeling that in the case of the banana, it's quite a lot to do with the buyer. Now, you've researched the buyer a little bit. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Justin Sun?
Yes, so he's a very wealthy cryptocurrency dealer. And of course, you know, everything now is AI and FTs, and it's the way that money's going, and it's very good publicity for him. So obviously, you know, he's not daft. But what makes this banana so unusual is, and it has, as you say, taken the art world by storm. It is the current spectacle, and what's amazing is that even during these very difficult times, the art market still manages to spend big on a significant fuss. Why has it created this fuss? Well, don't forget, the winning bid just happened in a matter of minutes. It took Justin Sun minutes to beat 6 other rivals, so they've all got mega bucks in their pocket. But you know, it's conceptual art at its best.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The time is 8:25. Now, the first pill to slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease is being studied for use by the NHS.
So, good news. The daily pill, manufactured by a small British firm called Tor RX, works by preventing clumps of protein from building up in the brain, and that's according to the studies.
Yeah, and it comes just months after another life-changing Alzheimer's drug was deemed too expensive to provide for NHS patients, despite being given the green light for use in the United Kingdom.
OK, well, joining us now is Health and Social Affairs Editor at the Sunday Express, Lucy Johnston. Lucy, lovely to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us. Now, this sounds, in theory, like good news, but there always seems to be a but with these stories.
Well, there is always a but because we're in early stages, but it is early stages of dementia sort of breakthroughs. So until now, we've only really been able to treat symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. Now we are seeing cutting edge treatments breakthroughs like the drug you mentioned before, lecanemab, which reduces a certain protein in the brain that has been shown to slow cognitive decline or slow the symptoms of dementia. That, as you say, was deemed too expensive. It also has some quite nasty side effects. So I think it was probably, there's some good reasons why that wasn't rolled out for use on the NHS. And this new drug targets actually a different protein in the brain, which does sometimes malfunction and build up and cause this sort of like tangles in the networks, like the brain exchange, and this has been shown to reduce those proteins. So it's like a new dawn, and it's a complex disease with lots of causes, so there's no silver bullet out there. But like cancer, we seem to be beginning a process where we're finding out what might work, and there is great hope on the horizon, really.
Lucy, as you say, this is in the early stages of trials. And of course, when you have a trial, you also have a control, don't you? A placebo, someone being given a drug which looks like it but actually doesn't have any effect. What has been the difference between the actual new drug and the placebo effect?
Well, there's been a bit of a problem with this because it's been very hard for scientists to show the placebo effect, because this drug actually does have an effect to make your urine turn blue. So the people who were on the trial on the placebo knew, or each part of the trial knew whether they were having the drug or not. So there's been a bit of sort of tweaking, and the latest trials, I believe, have given a tiny dose of the drug to those people who were on the dummy drug, just a tiny dose, not enough to have an effect on the brain, so that they didn't know whether they were on the trial or not. So that was the problem. The actual results showed that those people who were taking the active drug did have slowing of their brain decline, and they also showed that there was a marker of brain decline, another biomarker, showing effectivity. The good thing about this drug is that it is a pill, so it's a lot easier to take than the other drug, which is twice monthly infusions, and that was perhaps one of the reasons why the NHS wasn't really able to cope with it, because it's logistically hard and it would take a lot of work, a lot of screening, and you have to go into hospital for those.
So, Lucy, just very, very simply, you need to be showing some signs of early problems with dementia and Alzheimer's to be put on a trial or to be given this drug, and then it slows it down. That's how it works, basically, is it?
That's exactly how it works.
Right.
There's no fix. It doesn't stop anyone developing dementia. And anecdotally, I spoke to experts yesterday actually on this, and people who are running these trials, and they're saying that they've got patients who've been on it for a long time, 11 years. I think some of the trials started in 2013. And they are doing really, really well. So anecdotally, there's some good news. Trials are showing promise. It's just sort of, watch and wait and work out, whether this is going to have effect over a large population over a long time. And the other good news about this drug is it doesn't seem to have the same side effects as the previous drug that targets a different protein, which actually caused bleeding in the brain, swelling in the brain, and some other real problems, which worried some scientists and some doctors.
Gosh, well, fingers crossed this is the start of some good news. Health and Social Affairs Editor at the Sunday Express, Lucy Johnson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's just such a horrible, horrible problem, and it seems to be increasing, and people are developing it younger and younger. As Lucy said, there's so many different causes to it and different symptoms to develop.
And people get older as well, and of course their loved ones then have to look after them because social care is so expensive and there's not enough social care. It's a really horrible disease.
So fingers crossed that does bring some good news to us. OK, well, there's loads more still to come, and this is GB News with Cameron and Dawn, and we'll see you very soon. Well, we've got sport coming up and papers.
We do?
Yeah, we're going to talk football again. Lucky me, eh? We'll see you soon.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
This is a topic very close to my heart. I have become fully convinced that social media, smartphones are one of the primary causes of mental health problems in children and many other serious problems beside. Lots of governments are starting to talk about this, but the Australians are well ahead in their use of legislation. What do you think about this issue?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I've got 3 young children, and I'm really concerned about... I mean, they're too young to be on social media, but I'm really concerned about what lies ahead for them. I'm not sure I support what Australia's doing, not because I don't think it's a good idea to ensure that age verification is right. I'm just not sure that the age 16 is appropriate. But that's progress. If we effectively, as I do, accept the point that we need some sort of control, then we can move to a proper debate about whether that's 16, 14, 13, whatever it may be. And, of course, there are age restrictions on things like Facebook. I think, from memory, it is 13.
Yes, but it's a tick box.
But it's a tick box, so all you can do is you can just knock. If you're 11 years old, you can just predate your date of birth by 2 years, and you can get on. I think what Australia is proposing is interesting because it will stop young people, maybe without their parents' knowledge, short-circuiting the system because they're going to be asking for proper age verification and ID. That's definitely something we should do in the UK because it's enforced in the existing law. Query, is 16 the right age, Miriam?
I completely agree with it. It's something I actually said should have been done before. And I think what is good about it is that for a long time, a lot of governments have been saying that the actual social media companies should take more responsibility, but they're not going to because it hurts their bottom line. The most voracious users are younger users. So they will pledge that, oh, I'll put the tick box in, but the kid is the one who's going to actually tick the box. So doing something like this is saying that, OK, we will put in legislation that damages your bottom line, and I think it will force the hand because they've said it's only 12 months and they will reevaluate it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching and listening if you're on the radio. Remember, we're on the radio, so if you're going out, you can take us with you. GB News Breakfast with Cameron and Dawn. And now we are going to talk, drum roll please, because it's a huge day for it, sport with Aidan McGee. Aidan.
Can we start darts? I'll relegate football to second. I'll relegate football to second story because darts was huge last night. Of course, Luke Littler getting through 4-1 against Ian White, who actually played against Luke Littler's grandfather in the Runcorn League back in the 90s, and he said he used to beat his granddad quite regularly, but he didn't have the same kind of luck against Luke. The Nuke, he's through to the 4th round. He'll face Ryan Joyce tomorrow, but he didn't play particularly well. It's unrealistic to expect a player of any level to have imperious form going all the way through a tournament. It's a long old slog as well. And he's been a bit inactive because of the way the seeding works and because of gaps between play. But he managed to shake off some rustiness and get through. 4-1 looks convincing, but on the night it wasn't that easy. But you know what? If you're going to go and win something, Dawn, you know well from following sport, sometimes you need a bit of a test, a bit of a workout.
Yes. So were there moments last night where we thought Luke Littler might not make it to the final?
I never thought he wouldn't make it, but I thought that it's not a bad thing for him to be pushed to the limit a little while. If they get to the final having just had a processional route through, when they really have to call on their reserves in the final, sometimes it isn't there because they've not had that sort of... It's... What would you call it? Kind of don't know. You need to be bruised a little bit to earn your rights.
You need a wake-up call every sportsman.
You do. And Luke Humphries is in action tonight against Peter Ryan, and that's interesting because Luke Humphries is the champion of this thing. He beat Luke Littler in the final last year, and nobody's really talking about him.
No.
And I think that suits him right down to the ground. If you're looking to get through to finals, and he's looking good himself as well. He's up against another former champion tonight, Peter Wright, at 9:45. Should say Luke Littler is in action tomorrow against Ryan Joyce. And we're beginning to see the top players get to the latter stages. And we want to see that, don't we? Because we're worried in the first week a lot of the seeds were dropping out because they've been beaten, which is great as well, because you want to see underdogs getting through. But it's looking to be a
When's
last.
the big final?
It is. I think it's January the 2nd, but I'm going to have to check.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, it might be the 3rd, actually. I'll check for you.
Yeah, because it has been. It seems to have been going all over Christmas.
Yeah, well, they had a break. They had a break just around. I mean, it used to be. I remember when I covered it, it was on Boxing Day, but they had a break on the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, certainly.
Right. Okay. And as did football had a break on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Not like the old days though. Back in the 60s, they used to play on Christmas Day. Can you believe that? And you've got foreign managers moaning now that they play on Christmas Day. Oh, no, on Boxing Day. Sorry.
On Boxing Day, I know.
Well, you can't have a Christmas dinner, can you?
No, well,
West Ham play football next day.
West Ham against Liverpool is at 5:15 today. At the
don't we know it?
Yes, we do.
Stadium.
Thank you very much, boys.
But some interesting games today. You'd think that Man City would go to Leicester at 2:30 and finally put paid to that wretched run that they've been on. I think it's one win in the last 12 matches. They've got 9 defeats in that time as well. Absolutely appalling from their point of view, given the standards they've been setting over the last 5-10 years.
It's like it just almost happened overnight.
I know.
Yeah.
I think back to Leeds United winning in 1992, and they finished 17th the following year. I don't think City are going to repeat that. But you've got to remember, they weren't just league champions, they were treble winners. Yeah. And so I've just got a feeling that with the 115 charges in the background, who knows what happens there. I've got a feeling it might be Pep Guardiola's last season, even though he signed that contract just a couple of months ago. And I must touch as well on the new Georgian president, the new president of Georgia, I should say, who's just been sworn in. We knew he was going to become president. Former Manchester City striker, 28 matches for City, 3 goals. I saw one of his appearances at Queen's Park Rangers, Loftus Road, 2.5 miles away from here. Where we're sitting now in October 1996. Trevor Sinclair scored with a side-footed shot like that. He used to be at West Ham, didn't he? And he loped around the pitch, Kavalashvili, and did absolutely nothing. And he played for Man City when they were unrecognisable as a club. From what they were, maybe, what they are these days. In fact, he'd probably fit getting the team now, wouldn't he?
Probably, yeah, no, absolutely. So we've got a player-turned-politician.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've seen Igor Stimac, the former Derby County defender, back in the 90s, became I think became foreign secretary maybe in Croatia. So it's not completely unheard of. We've seen other sports people. I mean, Imran Khan was quite successful in Pakistan, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we could have Gary Lineker as our next Labour leader. Potentially?
Yeah,
gosh.
Yeah.
I know.
What a claim. Wow.
Why not?
Yeah. Well, he never played as a left winger in football, did he?
Very good.
Never had a card.
Yeah,
Good boy is our Gary.
Aidan, thank you so much.
Good to see you this weekend. Lovely.
Thank you.
What's happening next?
Well, I don't know. You're in charge, aren't you? Patient zero. Right, OK. So, we're talking about illnesses, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah. Anyway, so still to come. Actually, if you want to escape Cameron's lurgy, he's responsible for your cold, by the way.
I'm not ill.
No, you're not ill. No, because you've given it to everybody else. But if you want to escape the winter lurgy, here's our forecast of some of those top European destinations for you.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
There's a lot of fine weather to come across many of the usual holiday hotspots in southern Europe through the next few days. A different story across the southeast of Europe, though. Here's Storm Elena bringing some heavy rain, strong winds across parts of Greece into Cyprus and into Turkey as well. Elsewhere, though, like I said, lots of dry weather on offer, and with that, lots of sunshine too. So not looking too bad at all if you're heading across many parts of southern Europe through the next couple of days. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter,
Yeah,
it
this
seems.
is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of, they had three chances to kind of take action.
Yeah.
Now, the employer should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation.
So it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, Berlin, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route. Okay. And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it at, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset by his
There was
wedding.
a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out because...
exactly. They had turfs on the...
turfs.
Yeah. GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The time is 8:43. Joining us now to go through the papers is Lynn May and Kane Blackwell. Lynn, the Beckhams are often in the headlines, but not usually their children. What's going on here?
Yeah, it must be quite frustrating because, having such huge icons for parents, Cruz has released a song for Your Love, and he's come under criticism that people are saying, I bet he's had loads of training, I bet he's had loads of help, loads of money pushed into him, all the rest of it. And this, again, must be quite frustrating for him. And he responded online saying, well, Jesus is a Nepo baby, assuming, his father being God. But then he deleted the comment.
So Nepo baby, just explain for people that aren't sure. Nepo baby is, child of celebrity parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you have a parent in high place that can help you have a leg up, so to speak, which I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I actually am of the opinion that it's harder to be ambitious when you are born into wealth, because what are you striving for? You have everything. So I really, commend people that have it all, so to speak, but still find a reason to get up in the morning and be ambitious. So I think people need to just lay off him a little bit.
He's 19 years old, and this is a Beatles-inspired song that he released on social media on Christmas Day, and obviously he got all that stick that you said, it's like, just because of who your mum and dad are, you can do this. And he came out of that comment. But he does have a bit of a point, doesn't he?
Well, I suppose Jesus did have his life set out for him, I suppose, in that sense. But, it was a bit of a crass comment. But, it is what it is. He's 19 years old, I do think, like Lynn was saying, a lot of people in sort of Hollywood or sort of these, rich families, a lot of them have parents who have been, massive movie stars. Look at Jamie Lee Curtis, for example. Fantastic actress. But, her dad was Tony Curtis. But are we saying that person isn't, good enough because their parents were, a high-profile actor or whatever it is. I do think we need to give people a bit of.
I think it's a bit of jealousy, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure loads of people would love to be in that position where they can go to mum and dad for some support, help, connections, networking.
I think every parent, no matter what industry you're in, would want to help their child.
What's wrong with that?
Exactly.
I do feel sorry if you are the son or the daughter of a famous sports person, though, and you're rubbish at that sport.
Well, hence he's taken after his mother with the music career.
Yes.
Or you always are coined at their greatness. So, like Denzel Washington, his son now acts, and I just think I compare him to Denzel Washington. I'm like, you're rubbish. But then would I have said he's rubbish if I didn't know who his father was?
I mean, don't get me wrong, Cruz is very lucky to be in the position he's in. However, as you say, if you were in his position, why wouldn't you just ask your mum and dad to help you out and kickstart your music career?
Yeah. Some don't know. Some say, oh, no, I don't want any help. I want to prove that I can do it on my own. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I think Paul McCartney's son has done that. He changed his name and and keeps away from that. So
Stella's doing pretty well, so...
and Gordon Ramsay's lad has joined the army or something, hasn't he?
Oh.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, with a father like that, can you...
Well, maybe Talking of food, let's talk Easter eggs, because, of course, it is the 29th of December. Why wouldn't we talk Easter eggs?
Well, it's one of those things where you just sort of think, oh, God, really? Already?
So what's happening? They're on sale.
They're already on the shelves.
Oh, God.
Don't get me wrong, I love an Easter egg. I think it's the best chocolate.
Yeah, but not in January.
But not in January. It's just a bit too soon, you know?
Someone even said Jesus hasn't even been born yet. Why are they already up? And he took a picture, and this was obviously before Christmas Day.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to help with the January health kick, is it, if there's loads of chocolate on the shelves?
Well, I mean, there always is. But, I went into my shop where I live, and there was cream eggs already out, and I was like, oh, God, this is a bit tempting, but it's also a bit odd.
Is it just these big companies kind of commercialising on all these festive holidays?
It's corporations, buying into it, and at the end of the day, we buy into it as well.
Just
so that's why they do it.
Ignore blinkers, ignore the eggs.
But there is something nice about Easter egg chocolate. It does taste like, do you think?
It's all crispy, isn't it?
It does.
It's got crunch to it, yeah.
Yes, but again, not in January. I think I'll wait. I'd love to see
December.
I would love to see the sales figures in January for Easter eggs. Who actually buys an Easter egg in January? Please get in touch if you do, because I'd love to know why you do so. Is it because they're not discounted this time of year? I haven't seen any.
No, and they're probably, the sell-by date is probably before Easter in any case.
Yeah, absolutely. gbnews.com/your say if you want to get in touch with us. Lynn, a potential Trump states visit, according to the Daily Mail. I suppose, Keir Starmer's perhaps potentially burnt bridges with the Trump administration already, so maybe it's up to the royal family.
Well, this is probably to do with the fact that he's, for a second time, is going to become the, president of the US again. So that extension of a visit is going to be given to him, and he's going to be making history if he does come for a second time for a state visit, which is, an achievement for him, of course, and why not? Why would he not be given a second visit?
And he absolutely loves the royal family. He was on his Trump Force One, showing journalists pictures of him with the Queen and King.
Isn't he? He sings their praises, and I think that's nice to see. Especially as sometimes he can be a bull in a china shop. It's nice that he has that level of respect for the royal family.
Exactly.
Kane, how is Trump going to deal with the Labour government in the United Kingdom? In terms of that soft power that potentially the royal family has, they might need a lot of it.
Well, I think the Labour Party, and particularly many Labour politicians, many members of the shadow cabinet, probably need to do a little bit of grovelling to Donald Trump. I know David Lammy likes to talk about his meal with Trump, and he got seconds and all of this sort of stuff. I do think that it's really important that we engage with President Trump and the US administration. We need them, and we need to make sure that our trading relationship, but also our defence partnerships, all of these things are actually, symbiotic. It's really, really important at the moment because, we have a really dangerous, ever-changing world where, we have an axis of evil, forming, with Russia, Iran and China. And it's really important that the West, and particularly, I think he does. I think he does understand that there is a real problem, and it is against. It's sort of like the battle of ideas, authoritarianism versus democracy, and this is the big sort of battlefield that I think we will see over the next 4 to 5 years in the West, and it's really important that we keep friends with the US.
I've covered a number of state visits in my normal role as the royal correspondent for GB News, and the amount of hospitality a head of state gets inside Buckingham Palace or potentially Windsor next year if the Sunday Times is to be believed, is incredible. And what that potentially does is then butter up the visiting head of state, as Trump, I'm sure he would love all the hospitality he gets in the state visit, because then the next day, when he will go to Downing Street for those hard political talks, could be a bit more open to negotiations.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think this is the thing. Even though Labour MPs have not been favourable towards Trump, we need to stay on side. And whatever the US tend to do in foreign policy, we tend to follow swiftly behind. So I think it's a positive. I would like to see him come for a second visit, and I think that would be brilliant.
Yeah. I think they should all be doing the YMCA with him as well.
Do you remember the last state visit where there was a giant baby Trump in Parliament Square?
Sadiq Khan.
Sadiq
we can pop that balloon.
Yeah, I'd like to see how that unfolds between Sadiq Khan and Trump if they ever cross paths. Which
Well,
I'm
you've
sure
got a
they will.
story about Sadiq Khan, haven't you, Kane, from the Mail on Sunday?
Well, I mean, Sadiq Khan, apparently he's going to be bringing New York-style drug chaos to the UK. I mean, he's already brought crime chaos to the UK and to London. So, the point is as well, Sadiq Khan doesn't have any sort of jurisdiction over drug policy or, Home Affairs policy. He doesn't have the ability to change this.
What is the New York style?
He can encourage it though, where he's suggesting potentially we should look at how we view cannabis usage,
decriminalising it.
Exactly, and I don't think this is a bad thing. We need growth, we need tax revenue, and the state of New York makes for the state 436 million alone just with the use of cannabis, 336 for the city million, and over 500 million for the localities around New York. So you can see the amount generated, and it would absolutely, smash the gangs that distribute illegally, and we can control it properly.
Well, there's a bit unfair potentially on Sadiq Khan because, as you say, Kane, he's not involved in legalising. He can't legalise drugs.
He can't legalise it, but he does like to get himself involved in these sorts of things. And actually, he should really be focusing on the things that matter to Londoners, housing, crime. I stood in London in the general election, and the amount of people who just said to me, we've got to get rid of this mayor, because he is
We had the opportunity to get rid of him, and we got him. The person who the Conservatives put up against him was just awful.
Well, Susan Hall is a great person, and she's a great politician as well. But
not for Mayor of London.
Look, that's semantics, and I think at the end of the day, the Conservative Party needs to get better at dealing with candidate selection in general.
Boris was brilliant.
Deborah Meaden, Labour.
Oh, yeah, she's being touted, isn't she?
Yes, as the next Labour London
Does she even live in London?
I'm sure she's got a house there. I'm not
She's
sure.
got a townhouse in London, who doesn't, hey? It's interesting, but, do people want sort of celebrities? And I know she is a business person, but do they want celebrities?
Trump was a celebrity business person who's now president about
OK, all right, here's the question
I don't think he's very much... It's not Deborah Meaden, and Deborah Meaden is definitely not Trump.
OK, all right, which celebrity would you have as London Mayor, Lynn?
Oh, I don't know, maybe Idris Elba.
Oh.
Ooh,
he's been getting involved. He's been getting involved in politics a lot, especially in London.
Yeah.
OK. Kane?
Well, it's not... I don't care about what the celebrity is. I just want someone who's actually going to win.
To be able to do the job.
And win. And actually beat Sadiq Khan and actually do the job and actually deliver for Londoners, because that is really important. Our capital city is the greatest in the world. And at the moment, it just feels that, nothing works, nothing's changing. You can't go out at night. You can't, go to a club for late.
Our
nightlife is terrible.
Yeah.
All of these things that Sadiq Khan and his useless sort of people he's put around him have failed to deliver for London.
Stop voting him in, then.
I agree.
Right, OK, Lynn May, thank you very much for joining us this morning. A pleasure, as always. OK, and now, well, whether you're going out in London or anywhere else, here's the weather you'll need to know about.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, the weather is certainly set to change. We lose the mist and fog, but it's certainly turning much wetter and windier for most of us. Back to here and now, we still have some mist and murk around first thing this morning, especially across England and Wales. But I'm hopeful as the day goes on, this will start to break up more readily than it has done of late. So some afternoon sunshine for parts of England and Wales. Northern Ireland having a relatively dry day, but rather cloudy. But Scotland seeing plenty of wet weather, especially for Western Scotland, with some heavy and persistent rain here. With more in the way of brightness around, certainly a milder day. Could see highs reaching 10 to 11 degrees. So we see Sunday afternoon out on a fairly quiet note across many southern parts. Some late sunshine giving away to some clear spells overnight. Northern Ireland and much of northern England relatively dry apart from the odd spot of rain, where the main bulk of the rain really is going to be across Scotland, where some cold air beginning to tap into, so we could see that rain turn increasingly to snow, especially across the higher ground. And really, if anything, as we go through the course of the night, that rain just intensifies across parts of Scotland. A very wet start to the early hours of Monday morning. Again, some snow across the higher ground. Warnings are in force right throughout Monday, and they will continue into New Year's Eve as well. So if you do have any travel plans across Scotland, do be aware and stay alert to the latest warnings. Further south, a relatively quiet start to Monday. Some sunshine around, especially across the far south, but again, a fair bit of cloud around. Maybe just the odd shower across the far south, but again, most of the rain will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland later on, with potentially some rain just also arriving into northern England. Mild for most of us, with the exception of the far north, where it will start to turn increasingly cold.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won $25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's about Generation Z spending 6 hours a day online. Generation Z, which age group is that?
16 to 24.
OK, great.
Now, this could explain why there's 1 million young people aged between 16 and 24.
100%.
Not working. Work.
Yeah.
And I did a TV show and we're talking about it, and the lefty person I was on with was making excuses for the fact that we've got 9 million people unemployed. And this woman, this mom, rang in and she was hilarious. And I thought she was going to have a go at me. She said, Carol Malone. I thought, here we go, another one. And she goes, you are absolutely right. She said, I've just thrown my son out of the house, who's 24. She said, my husband and I, she said, we worked all our lives, 2 jobs, to get him to college, to get him to a private school. Yeah. She said, he hasn't worked a day.
No.
And his attitude was, why should I? And you think, and she said he spends all day online.
On his phone.
All he's
because
doing.
we would have gone to get a job because we were bored. And the trouble is, Jonathan, the younger generation are never, ever bored because the algorithms keep them stimulating.
Well, the dopamine hits keep coming. I think it's actually a problem for all of us. Yeah. You know, now for anyone, if you just have a moment to yourself, a lot of people of all ages, what do we reach for? We reach for our phones, particularly for those. Obviously, if we're with a friend, we'll talk to them.
Your age group, you're not talking about.
Well, I know that I've spoken to a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s who also will just, you know, if they have a free month on the tube or whatever, they'll just look at their phone and read. And it's actually terrifying because on the iPhone every Monday it tells you how much time you spent on your phone the previous week, and it's
How much for you?
On average per day?
Fair few hours. I mean, a lot of that will be work.
What's the ballpark? Oh, more than 5?
Occasionally 5, yeah.
Well,
You've got
better things to do. Spending 6 hours a day.
Do you never read a book? Well, that'll be at night time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. The Education Secretary claims middle classes will support her VAT introduction on private schools.
Bridget Phillipson has said pushy parents will demand more from the state schooling system after being priced out by rising fees.
But many are heavily criticising the move, saying it will put more pressure on state schools.
The Prime Minister's approval ratings are branded catastrophic with rural voters in a new poll following the planned tax raid on farmers.
And at least 151 people have been killed after a passenger jet carrying 181 passengers crashed in South Korea. And that's according to the National Fire Agency.
President-elect Donald Trump has asked the US Supreme Court to delay an upcoming TikTok ban while he works on a political resolution.
And no shock here, folks, the top New Year resolution is to get fit, with 38% of us setting a target for ourselves. We'll be finding out the tips to achieve your goals.
Good morning. It's all changed as we see out 2024. We say goodbye to the Mr. Merc, but it's replaced by some wet and windy weather. Find out all the details coming up a little later on.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Cameron Walker.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Looks like the weather Grinch is back. That didn't look like a great outlook,
Well,
did
there was
it?
a little bit of green on there, you know, compared to that grey we've seen. I just want to say thank you for joining us. It is a Sunday morning, in case you're wondering. It is the 29th of December. It is still December, because none of us know what's going on at the moment, do they? I mean, it's a Sunday. I have to reminding myself it's a Sunday morning. So thank you very much for your time. You've got nowhere to rush off to. May as well, you know, put your feet up, have another cup of tea, and watch the rest of the day on GB News. Got some cracking shows coming up, including at 9:30 this morning with a certain Mr. Christopher Hope, who is covering for the lovely Camilla Tominey and joins us now in the studio.
Good morning. Happy New Year, both. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
And we can still say Merry Christmas, evidently.
Can we?
Well, it's still the festive period, and it's in the 12 days.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
12 days. You're not meant to take the Christmas decorations
No,
down until 12 days
unlucky.
after Christmas.
I think it's the 5th day. It's 5 gold rings today.
5 gold rings?
Yes, or 4 calling
Come on.
birds. I won't start singing for you.
Please do.
But
I can't sing.
Yeah, no, I won't sing. But you've been here for most of the... I've been away in the Lake District swimming. I went to wild swimming.
Yes.
In Lake Windermere on Boxing Day.
How was it?
It was very cold. There might be a photograph of this somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was... Because if you don't take a picture, it never actually happened.
Oh.
OK, well, hopefully they'll find that
Well, so-
for you.
yeah,
How cold was it? Was it a take your breath away moment?
It was really cold, yeah. But I felt very... You know, it gets the blood going around you, and you turn pink, basically, Cameron.
Well, you do need to stay tuned, because we do have that picture. It will be coming up, and it is Christopher Hope.
Well, there is just proof I did it, really.
In swimming trunks, not even a wetsuit.
No wetsuit required, but it was very, very cold.
Yeah.
That sounds really, really cold.
Tiny little speedos.
Meanwhile, what is coming up in your programme covering for Camilla today?
OK, so we've got Lord Fuchs, the Labour peer. He'll be talking about how Labour can pull themselves out of the doldrums. They are, of course, trying to get regulators to lift regulation and try and encourage growth and find a way forward looking into this year, because it's not working so far with the economy not growing at all in the most recent quarter. We've got Patrick O'Flynn, of course, the political commentator.
Hold on, we've got the picture, so we're going to have to...
Oh, here we go, OK.
Live breaking news of Chopper in a very cold...
there's proof I was in the water.
Looks like a Loch Ness monster.
I'm quite monsterish, aren't I? I mean, yeah, there we are. That's me swimming in Lake Windermere on Boxing Day. But if you do this kind of thing, you must take a picture. To prove it happened.
Obviously, otherwise it doesn't happen.
Cameron and Dawn, it never did. No, but I can recommend it. There's someone called, is it Wim Hof, who recommends ice baths.
Yeah.
You do feel very smug, frankly, and warm and tingly for a long period.
Warm and tingly.
Like whenever I meet you, Dawn, I feel warm and tingly. And happy.
What the nicest
it's like an ice bath meeting Dawn Neeson on a Sunday morning. So,
compliment. Not sure that's going in quite the right direction.
Patrick O'Flynn.
What else have you got coming
is in the
up?
papers. He's looking at the story in the Mail on Sunday today about apparently a battle between the Tory leader Kevin Badenoch and GB News of some sort. I mean, it's.
Right, we were sitting here. We broke this story, didn't we? We interviewed our Nigel Farage on this show. And we said straight after that interview...
That's the membership?
Yeah, absolutely, the membership route. And we said straight after that interview, OK, Kevin Badenoch, we know you're a fan of GB News, we know you watch GB News, and we love having you on the show. Please do come on the show and put your side of the story. So we did invite Kemi on to give her side of the story.
We are always asking her on. She's been on twice so far since she became leader, and yet there's kind of some row breaking out in the Mail Sunday about platforming Reform politicians, but we always put the other side of the story. We're trying to get Kemi Badenoch on. We asked her team yesterday, previous to that. She's been on twice, once on Camilla Tominey's show before Christmas. Catherine Forster, my colleague, interviewed her. So 2 interviews since she became leader. That's once a month. That's pretty good for a Tory politician. So we are desperate to get her on. But this row seems crazy. And Patrick O'Flynn is a former UKIP press officer, a Brexit Party MEP. He knows Nigel Farage very well. He'll be able to say what it means for Kemi Badenoch and who's going to win that fight. So he's on, reading the papers. Dame Andrea Jenkins, Reform has now got 150,000 members, according to its ticker, 20,000 more than the Tory party. That's going only one direction. She's pleased with that. Lord Fuchs, as I say, Labour peer. Liam Fox, the former the Defence Secretary, about the year in review, whether we're going to get anywhere near this defence spending target that many think we do need to deal with the Russia threat. Christian Adams, my old colleague from The Telegraph, he's a cartoonist, a political cartoonist, very funny cartoons. We can use those to review the year with him. And finally, Edward Hall, he's a campaigner who's working with amputees in Gaza, trying to find limbs to fit to people injured in the fighting there.
So a really good cross-section of everything that's going on then. But this row between Reform and the Conservative Party, or Kemi and Nigel, if you want to bring it down to the two of them, I mean, it is incredible because all the time Labour are sitting there and going, well, just get on with it.
Well,
I mean, it's benefiting them, surely.
100%. And it's a battle, for me, it's a battle over who speaks for the right. I think, for me, what the Tories might be forgetting is they've got, over 120 MPs. Reform have got 5 MPs. I mean, what David Cameron didn't do when he was facing that threat from Farage, when Farage was on the ascendant over a decade ago, he never talked about Farage, he talked about Labour.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why the official opposition is the Tories against Labour. Why they're worrying about, frankly, a pinprick, a tiny party compared to the scale of the Tory party, is walking straight into, frankly, a trap set by Farage to talk about him all the time.
Well, it was a bit of a trap, wasn't it? Christopher, coming up at 9:30. For Camilla.
Tune in, everybody.
You don't want to go anywhere.
And just to say on that GB News Kemi Badenoch story, a GB News spokesperson said they had a very constructive meeting that took place without acrimony.
So, Kemi, if you are, Christopher's ready for you, braced. And he'll show you all his holiday pictures. And it was very cold.
Now, if you didn't get... Sorry, Dawn, I took your link then.
That's fine, you can be Dawn.
OK, I'll be Dawn.
Possible.
There we go. If you didn't get everything on your Christmas list, how about £50,000 in tax-free cash in the new year?
And this is me being Cameron.
Yep.
It really could be yours. It's our biggest ever Great British giveaway. And here's all the details you need to win.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, lots of you have been getting in touch today. Thank you for all the very nice comments. We really appreciate it. And it is huge fun working with Cameron here. Patricia, though. Good morning, Patricia. She says, Cameron... Bless you.
Hello.
I feel sorry for you this morning. It's difficult to get a word in with Dawn.
Oh, what?
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
It's actually a pleasure working with Dawn.
Thank you very
We've
much.
been sat next to each other for 3 days now, and I think it's been all right. Isn't it? Giving each other equal saying.
Yeah, and Patricia, that's why he gave me the cold in the first place, right?
Oh,
so I
here
could
we
just shut up and
go.
not talk.
Here we go.
Everyone's suffering. He is patient zero.
Yeah, I don't think I am patient zero. I had just about recovered from a cold when we presented with each other on the 23rd of December.
You passed
and then
it on.
Dawn was ill. Yeah, I think somebody else was patient zero.
It's the
but
season for giving.
we'll agree to disagree on that one. Thank you for your message, Patricia. Now, members of the royal family travelled to Australia, Samoa and South Africa earlier this year, despite a gruelling 12 months of health battles. The King and Queen spent time down under, while the Prince of Wales travelled to Cape Town for his environmental Earthshot Prize. And I took a look. Took a look. Is that a word? Yes.
Yep. It is now.
The royal family was propelled onto the global stage this year, representing brand Britain and deploying their soft power despite their private health battles. The King and Queen travelled thousands of miles to Australia, the first time His Majesty had visited as the country's head of state and the first reigning king to step foot on its soil.
Welcome to Australia. Lovely to have you here.
Partly due to the King's cancer diagnosis, the trip lasted only 6 days, visiting Sydney and Canberra. Hailed by crowds, but heckled by individuals. Senator Lydia Thorpe was widely condemned for her outburst and was symbolically censored by Australian lawmakers. Meanwhile, the King made a point of acknowledging the traditions and lives of Indigenous communities and spent time listening to their experiences. Republican protesters were kept well back by police when Their Majesties visited the Sydney Opera House. An estimated crowd of well-wishers exceeded 10,000 people. Then Their Majesties travelled more than 4,000 miles into the middle of the South Pacific to visit Samoa, first for a short state visit, followed by the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, the first time King Charles had presided over the conference as its head.
Since this is the first occasion on which I find myself attending this gathering of our family of nations as head of the Commonwealth, it gives my wife and myself enormous pleasure and pride to be with you for this 27th Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
I have hope and I have that optimism that these guys and girls can change our future.
Meanwhile, the Prince of Wales flew to Cape Town for his 4th annual Earthshot Prize, designed to find solutions to repair the planet in this critical decade. The first time the prize was held on the African continent, Prince William was keen to spotlight African innovation and young people. Earthshot Prize Ambassador Robert Irwin spoke to GB News.
When you think of the Earthshot Prize, instantly you think of Prince William. His devotion and his dedication to conservation is unparalleled. It is absolutely amazing. And it's so encouraging to see someone, of course, with a brilliant platform that's using that platform 100% to create positive change for our environment.
When's your next match?
Royal sources have confirmed the King will resume a more normal-looking programme of international travel next year. The Prince of Wales hopes he and the Princess of Wales will carry out more international travel too. Both households, however, are keeping tight-lipped about the destinations. Cameron Walker, GB News. Yeah, so from my understanding, there is a long list of places which William and Catherine and the King and Queen could potentially go to, and they're whittling it down to a short list probably as we speak, and then they will let us know. Usually it's about a month before they go away that they tell us exactly where they're going.
Well, hopefully they will both be fit and well enough to do it. I mean, it's been a tough year. And everyone, whenever you have this conversation, everyone goes, oh, yeah, they're very privileged, they get the best healthcare. Yes, of course they do. But if you've got a loved one that is suffering from cancer, it doesn't matter how much wealth and privilege you've got, it's still a horrible time to go through, and the treatment is not pleasant. So thoughts with anyone out there that is going through a similar situation, because it's an emotional time of year, and obviously going into a new year with health worries is never a good thing. So fingers crossed for the royals.
Fingers crossed.
And everybody else out there as well.
All the best. Now, still to come, the Prime Minister's approval ratings are branded catastrophic.
I wonder why. We'll find out next. This is GB News with Cameron and Dawn.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Oedipus is back in the theatre, as Stefan Kyriazis can tell me. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A good Oedipus or a bad one?
It's a great one. It's divided the critics a little bit. So some would prefer more kind of truth to the original text, perhaps a little bit more sense of the kind of epic Greek tragedy. I mean, this is Sophocles. It's 2,500 years old, and it's still one of the best, literally, no pun, the mother of all tragedies. It's just absolutely staggering. You like that?
I did. Where and with whom?
So this one is on at the Wyndham Theatre until January the 4th. The exciting thing is Mark Strong as Oedipus, Leslie Manville as his wife, Jocasta, and it's been reframed, you'll see from the pictures, as a modern political thriller. So he is waiting for election results, general election results, you will remember. There's a clock ticking down in the background. They're at Campaign HQ. They're waiting for it to click down to 0. We increasingly know that when it hits 0, terrible truths are coming. So it's operating on 2 levels. He's obsessed with the truth. He says very famously, I am me. He's so proud of his sense of who he is. And of course, that's all going to be horrendously ripped away. Mark Strong is wonderful. And then when we get to the very end and the horrific final reveal, I forgot. I was so gripped in the political thriller and everything else, I actually swore under my breath in the theatre, Michael, because I just had been so engrossed, and they play very well at other mysteries going on and a family drama, that when my penny dropped, I literally was devastated, and they do it. Even the critics that haven't loved this reframing admit, the two of them, and especially at the end, it's searingly agonising. It's glorious.
2,500 years later,
yeah,
it's still absolutely visceral.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
OK, now, welcome back. The Prime Minister's approval ratings are branded catastrophic with rural voters in a new poll following the planned tax rate on farmers.
Yeah, and despite being hit with Labour's new inheritance tax for farmers, many family farms continue to fight on against the modern-day challenges facing the industry.
OK, let's cross to the Scottish town of Mulcline, is it? Mulcline? To speak to Scotland reporter Tony Maguire.
Hello, good morning. We're actually at Mossgiel Farm in Mauchline. You know, that crucial CH always tripping up, even the best presenters. But I'm joined this morning by Bryce Cunningham. Bryce, thank you so much for having me here at the farm. We're slap bang between Christmas and New Year, and yet the farming doesn't stop, does it? What are we up to today?
Absolutely, yep. So farming must go on. The cows don't know it's Christmas or Twixmas is in the middle of. So right now behind me, so Elizabeth, our farm manager, she's now bedding up the cows. We finished the milking about an hour ago, and the cows have just been fed. So there's lots of things to keep us busy right in the middle of winter.
And there's some beautiful calves behind us. I don't know if there's a shop. If you stick with us through the day, don't worry, there'll be lots of cute calves coming your way. But of course, just now especially, it's really hard to kind of talk about farming without talking about the political whirlwind of the last few months. You know, Rachel Reeves' budget really, you know, making a lot of people very concerned for their future. You mentioned you're third generation farmer here. Tell me, you know, how did that news land for you?
For me personally, I felt it was a little bit of a sort of, you know, I sort of two fingers up to farming from the government kind of thing. However, you know, as time goes on, you know, farming's one of the most resilient industries out there. It's the original industry. You know, everyone's eaten since they do it. So I think it's going to survive. How it's going to survive is one of the question marks we have. But me personally, I believe that, you know, farming itself has to change in the way that we operate. You know, we have to get fairer prices for the food that we sell as farmers. You know, we need to get away from this whole sort of supermarket globalisation, big dairy sort of attitude where the farmer always pays for everything and gets the lowest possible prices, and I think we really need to go different all the way from the bottom of the supply chain all the way to the top.
Now, you're obviously an organic farm here. In fact, I just found out just a moment ago, one of only 2 farms in Scotland that keeps the calves and the mothers together. But you're also part of a farming cooperative. Now, given this situation, you know, it feels like diminishes it somewhat, given this unsettling time for the farming industry. I mean, we even heard today a poll says that only 1 in 5 people think that Keir Starmer cares about people in the country, and that includes farmers. But give us an idea, that farming cooperative you're a part of, what strength does that give you with the future you're now facing?
Well, we genuinely believe that small-scale farming has a real future in Scotland and across the UK, of course. And what we believe is that there's strength in numbers. So as small-scale farmers, we can work together to pasteurise milk. On site here at Bisgill, we actually pasteurise milk for 5 other farms. Sorry, I should have said that. And what we believe is, because we've got this direct relationship with the end user, the consumer, our supporters effectively, we can then ask the exporters to support us with higher prices. We can then deliver those prices back to farms. And in the middle, the milk we do is brewing. We don't actually pasteurise the milk, we brew it, so it creates a really different flavour, and it's giving everyone value in the supply chain. So that's the consumers getting a better product, the farmers are getting better pay, and it allows everyone to work together for a better future for small-scale farmers.
Now let's go back to kind of some fonder matters. We've got some beautiful wee calves. I'm going to try and entice them over the next couple of minutes. But tell me about this farm, because this farm, or at least this sort of very close locale, was home to someone quite important here in Scotland as well, wasn't it?
It was indeed. So just about 50 metres behind you, where we're standing just now, is where Robert Burns lived. Robert Burns, of course, Scotland's favourite national son. He wrote poems like Tea a Moose here, just in the field behind us, and yeah, it's a really important part of Scottish history. And what we want to do through our branding is tell the Burns story in a really unique way, through food, through agriculture, and through what he was, which was a ploughman, poet, and of course a farmer.
Now, Robert Burns, who was a champion of the layman, if you're familiar with some of his work. Not that I'm calling you a layman, I'd never do that on national television, God forbid. But what would he think? He was a crofter. What would you think he would say, given the situation, the position that farmers have been put in just now?
Well, I think that Robert was, yes, it was all that, but he was also a realist as well. He understood how things worked on the ground. He loved nature, for example, so just a few hundred metres from here he wrote, "I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union." He's talking that in Tea a Moose. And he knew exactly how things worked, so he knew what the elites were up to, he knew what government was up to, and he understood the power of the farmer and how we all need to work together for a collaboration to go forward in the future.
Fantastic. Well, a man is a man for that, certainly. Now, my trousers are a little bit too clean for my liking, so hopefully the next time you come back to me, I'll have the sleeves rolled up here at Mossgiel Farm in Mauchline.
Go on, Tony, do some work, get mucking in.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Tony Maguire, for it. And I promise I'll be able to pronounce the name of wherever he is next properly.
I'm just very glad that it was you pronouncing that.
Because you're actually half Scottish
I am
as
half
well.
Scottish, and I wasn't sure. It's in Ayrshire, a farm in Ayrshire.
But it's such an important subject. And, GB News, we are keeping on this story as we go into the new year as well, about farmers and how they're suffering and what we can all do to support them. Because so many small farms are going to suffer. And we've interviewed so many families on this. So it's like we don't know what to do. We can't pass the farm down onto our children now. It's just one of another problems that Labour are creating.
And you see the level of anger, particularly in central London with the farmers' protests, which we covered extensively on GB News last month. But Labour are sticking to their guns and saying we're not going to U-turn on this. We need to raise these taxes to improve public services and all the rest of it. But we have been talking about different polling of if a general election, for example, was held tomorrow, who would be voting for what. If Tories and Reform were banded together, they might just about overtake Labour. We've had a comment in from Debbie, who says half the Tories need to go to Lib Dems and the rest need to go to Reform. That's the only way that I'm going to join either of those parties.
It doesn't make sense. And also discussing the situation with Putin and the Ukraine. John says, so Starmer is giving more of our money to Ukraine to investigate war crimes against Putin. Starmer must be removed from government now. He's stopped the gangs. No, he's done nothing. Starmer has to go now. So not a lot of love in the room for Starmer, but a lot of love in the room from us to you. Thank you very much for joining us. If you've missed any of the show, you can catch up on the website, on YouTube or the app.
Yes, and the app. Thank you for your company. Christopher Hope up next for Camilla Tominey.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day.